Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 307. I am Peter, and unfortunately Matt is not here this week. And it's not so much that Matt couldn't record this week, but Connor definitely won't be here for the next couple of weeks, so we decided to record when Connor could record this week, so you get a Connor episode before 2 or 3 Matt episodes in a row. So yeah, Connor's here.
Yeah, you've only got to suffer through me this one, and then at least a few without me, I think.
Yes, well, I look forward to the coming weeks.
I'm sure you do.
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and we talk about the week's DC Comics that we read. Coming up on this week's show, we have Detective Comics 1060, Action Comics 1043, Deathstroke Inc. issue 9, Robin issue 14. Of course, those are both part of the Shadow War crossover. We got the Swamp Thing issue 13. We have Task Force Z issue 8. DC vs. Vampires Hunters issue 1, Batman Fortress issue 1, and Connor's going to talk about one Patreon book, which is Harley Quinn issue 15. So that is what's coming up on this week's show. So healthy amount of books this week. Definitely the healthiest it's been all month. I'll get
tell me about it.
I'll get a Patreon book or two done next week on week 5. So
turns out weeks that I'd been missing stacked up and had not caught up on all my books was mostly books for this week. So I had to read 2 or 3 of everything, basically. Yeah. So I read 13 issues for today. And by 4 today, I mean I read 2 last night and I read the rest today.
So, on the upside, at least the Shadow War probably forced you to read whatever issues were relevant for that a couple of weeks ago.
I think that was the only thing I was up to date on.
Yeah. But that's probably because
everything else had 2 or 3 issues. Yeah.
That'll be because there was an issue that you need to read them for like a couple of weeks ago, probably, because that's had something almost every week, whereas everything else was monthly. Ah well, at least there was some good stuff in there you had to read. I mean,
I had 2 issues of Action Comics. I had 3 issues of Swamp Thing. Those were very enjoyable.
Well, me and Matt gave the last issue of Swamp Thing a 10, so I assume that you were.
I agreed. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Well, that's good. We'll see how we feel about this week's episode issue later on. But do not fear, everyone, because there is always time for a ComiXology top 10.
Is it X-Men?
I don't know. I haven't looked yet.
Oh.
Now you can guess. Now you may guess.
Is it X-Men?
It's X.
Is it an X-Men book?
It is X-related, yes.
I don't know what X-Men books came out this time. Was there a Wolverine?
It's an issue 1, so I don't know if you'll get it.
Oh, then who knows?
Legion of X, issue 1.
I had no chance.
Yeah, I'd never heard of this either. I assume Legion, the character, is got something to do with it.
That or it's just a shitload of X-Men.
That is also possible. But that is number 1. Number 2 is Saga, issue 59. Always does well. And you know what? Credit to Saga, still 2.99.
And honestly, if I'd known Saga was out this week, I'd have guessed that as number 1.
Yeah, well, it was close. It was close. Marvel back in here at number 3. If you'd like to guess what the next Marvel book would be.
Is it more X-Men?
It's not more X-Men.
I don't actually know what Marvel books are out this week. I got no clue.
Oh, come on.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, I was going to say, if it's not X-Men, what's the next most logical guess?
Yeah.
Spider, yes.
Well, I don't know if the Spidey was out.
Amazing Spider-Man issue 2.
I take it that's not weekly anymore, then.
I presume not. I presume it's went back to monthly, or maybe even maybe twice a month, but probably not weekly anymore. That's the Zeb Wells and John Romita's on this now. I mean, John Romita. Ugh. What a way to make me not want to read your character. I'm just happy he's back at Marvel. That's fine.
I heard, issue 2. I was like, maybe I'll check out, issue 1 when it gets to, Infinite. Like, so, like 3 months back. Maybe next month I'll check it out. Get back on Spidey, and then you said that, and I'll, Romita Jr. Like, no, thank you. I will hard pass.
Yeah. Our first DC book's at number 4, and it's actually Batman Beyond the White Knight. Which, fair enough, I suppose. Sells well. Back to Marvel with number 5 is Hulk number 7. And it is notable here that DC had a lot of books out this week, and I would argue they had a lot of good books out this week. I mean, not necessarily that I'm not going to necessarily spoil what I feel about these issues, but I'm saying in terms of what the series are, there's a lot of books that I feel should be doing well.
There's books that I think should be doing well, but don't like Swamp Thing. I don't expect in this top 10 necessarily, at least not in the top half, as good as it is. Whereas, I don't know, Action Comics.
Well, we'll find out where some of these are, because we do. I mean, don't get me wrong. The back half of the top 10 is mostly DC, but Robin 14 is number 6. DC versus Vampires Hunters issue 1 is number 7. Number 8 is Action Comics, and then number 9 is back to Marvel with Devil's Reign Omega.
End of that event, I assume.
Yeah, and then Batman Fortress is number 10. The one that's shocking to me is that Detective Comics is 15. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. Are you on the UK or the US Amazon for this?
US. I'm on the US.
That's very interesting because I believe the UK Amazon finally added the.
No one cares.
The ability to. Yeah, the entire UK audience cares.
you bring this up all the time. I've got a chart. I'm being consistent.
Yeah, no,
I don't care.
I'm saying that they have fixed it.
On topic.
On the UK, Detective Comics is 9, which. Honestly, the UK is significantly more DC heavy. Like, holy shit, it's more DC heavy.
Well, the UK has better taste than apparently.
The UK one only has 2 Marvel books, and those are at 4 and 8 respectively.
Interesting. But yes, so that's at 15. I mean, Task Force Z beat it, which makes me wonder if there's something fishy going on with Detective Comics. He's like, I don't know. I don't know what it could be, but something's tanked it this week relative to everything else. Deathstroke Inc.'s at number 13, so I did those in reverse order because I just want to talk about Detective being solo. But yeah, so I mean, nothing's like super low down, but certainly only one DC book in the top 5. It's a little bit of a shame given this week. It's a shame that Swamp Thing's down at like number 24. Ugh.
As sad as that is, I think that's within expectations.
I know. I'm still disgusted by it.
Like, more people should absolutely be reading that book. But my one consolation is that's going to have such a long life in the book market.
When they finally put out the full 16-issue deluxe hardcover.
Yeah, that's selling for years.
I'll do numbers. But that's basically it. There's nothing else of interest, I don't think. Some Teen Titans Academy issue or whatever. That's at like number, is it 17?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Who cares about that book?
Godzilla versus Power Rangers. I mean, unfortunately it's by Killing Bunn, but I do have to just point out there's a book called Godzilla versus Power Rangers and it's on the charts this week.
Doesn't he have what is meant to be a fairly fun Godzilla book before?
That sounds possible, but what I've read of his superhero work has not left me.
I agree. I'm not a big fan of his superhero work, but I've heard his other stuff is better.
But hey ho, there you go. That's about it for the ComiXology top 10 this week. But don't worry, he'll be back next week.
I won't. It's fine.
Nothing will stop me. The good news keeps on coming. We do have one bit of news. It seems Mark Waid's been doing some talking. He's got another DC book coming later this year. Coming out in October, he's got Batman versus Robin, and it is it's Batman and it is Damien specifically as Robin. Going back to kind of their time together and the relationship. What's interesting about this is that it's somewhat spinning out. He says in the interview that he gave that it's spinning out of his World's Finest book, which is really weird given that his World's Finest book is set in the past and
features a strangely undeterminate Robin.
It's not indeterminate. It is definitely Dick.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll take your word for it.
Is it? Yeah, because there's a joke in issue 2 about how he's trying out the different outfit. He's not in the pixie shorts. So there's a reference to it in issue 2.
Okay, fair enough.
So it's definitely Dick. He just happens to have a staff.
Yeah, they just happen to make him Tim.
I mean, whatever. What's weird though is that given that it's dealing with all this stuff with Damien, you would think, oh, is this going to be tied a bit more to continuity? But which is a little weird given like the weird sort of like. I mean, I've had fun with what they're doing with Supergirl and Robin and World's Finest. There's like a bit of banter, but like it's like it's fine because it's not in continuity. It's not messing with their history. or giving them this history that they're not supposed to really have. But yeah, especially since I'm pretty sure the demon Neza, the name was mentioned this week in another comic
It was
in continuity. Yeah,
it was in one of the Shadow War issues.
I did a double take because wait, is that the same demon that's in World's Finest right now? And then I was like, yeah, it is.
Because I was very confused because the Nezu was mentioned, and I was like, huh, was that part of the story already, or am I conflating
No, I don't think so.
with something else? And I couldn't remember which one it was, but World's Finest, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I am wondering if they're kind of like trying to slot his World's Finest into like early continuity and saying that is part of the past.
Yeah, I think that is the intention.
Which is fine. I'm okay with them setting up Neza in the past and then doing a story that deals with it in present
fine.
day.
It would be better if Nezu was more interesting, which so far has been very bland.
I've not really had a problem with Neza all that much. But yeah. Some of the things they've maybe done with the characterization of Supergirl and Robin. Like, I've enjoyed it on its own, but it is a little bit weird that it's in continuity technically now.
I always assumed it was continuity, to be honest. Just, set earlier.
I guess I just didn't, just because it was, or at least I guess just because it was like, okay, it's in the past and it's just kind of this weird side thing. I just didn't think any of it was going to play into anything. But now that this week we're hearing, like, oh, they're going to be dealing with this Neza stuff. It may just pop up in this book, and the reason why it's in Shadow Wars because it's tied to Damien, and it's like a nice little seed for that. But or if it's going to be mentioned elsewhere, away from Mark Waid and whatever. But he says that he always knew that this was going to spin out of World's Finest. This was always kind of a plan. It is interesting to me that he's going to be bouncing around the timeline and doing different parts of like the DC continuity. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see how present is this DC, is the Batman versus Robin going to be? Is this still slightly in the past? This could still easily be. You could slot this into some, early New 52, late.
You could, in fact, if I remember correctly, one of the arcs of Morrison's stuff was called Batman vs Robin. Wasn't that the second hardcover?
It might be, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, that wasn't Bruce, that was Dick, but still.
But but the point stands where you could fit this into when you've got an even more aggressive Damien still, if they wanted to.
Yeah. Mahmoud Assar is going to be doing the art, and it says it's going to be 5 oversized issues starting in September. Well, I said October earlier. I was speaking from memory. I got it wrong. September. And it'll be Damien and his father having to come to terms with something outside their regular day-to-day crime fighting. It's funny, I could see it being present day because of the relationship right now. It's just sort of starting to patch up a little bit, and they've been kind of in a rough place. So I could see this being
could be
present day.
No, if Mahmoud Asra has the eyes, I think that they are. Could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they're the reason I dropped Jason Aaron's Conan book quite early on, like 5-6 issues in.
I remember liking his work on the early New 52 Supergirl.
It's been a long time since I've read that.
Yeah, it's been a long time. But I mentioned that's what he's done here, and I was like, oh yeah, I've read that, and I remember vaguely how it looked. So I think I liked it. But it's been a while, admittedly. He's been away from DC for some time.
Like Wade, I suppose.
Yeah, that's true. Certainly I'm not getting any warning bells or anything, seeing the name. So, yeah.
You got more on this story?
I was going to say, yeah, he's also teasing that this might not be the last thing that spins out of World's Finest. So he's kind of using that as like a backbone of maybe these other like miniseries that he's going to want to do.
Such a strange book to use to spin everything out of, really. Like, given its placement in the timeline.
Yeah.
More
I guess what I would say is that it's going to spin out not directly in terms of like it's not like they're setting up the Damien and Bruce relationship in World's Finest. It's more just that some seeds are being planted that he's going to then sort of use as like, oh, this is going to pop up again in this present day story with Damien. Maybe there'll be other things. Maybe he'll do a Doom Patrol book that'll uses the Doom Patrol characters because he's playing with them in there. Or maybe it'll be stuff that's more, again, separated, like this one seems to be, where it's like, oh yeah, there's something that ties it into that, but it's just kind of a background plot thing, and it's going to be further down the timeline, or maybe it'll be even weirder than what this one is. I don't know.
Yeah, that's possible.
But I do kind of like that Wade's been allowed to kind of like dart around the DCU and do different things. I actually think that's quite exciting, and we'll see what else we get from it. But yeah,
hopefully something that'll be less obvious, because at the minute it's just Batman, Superman, and then here's more Batman, right? I'd like to see something a bit more, I don't want to say obscure, but just a little bit off center.
Yeah, I think maybe the way to look at this is it's more about Wade writing Damien for the first time.
That's true.
That could be maybe more the appeal for him. So yeah, Batman vs Robin issue 1 and World's Finest issue 7 come out in September. So yeah, we'll see.
So is it September or October?
September.
Flip-flopped. Yeah, a minute ago you said October, and then you were sorry, you said September before.
No, it was the opposite. I said October 1st and then corrected myself and said it's September. And now you're misremembering it as the other way around.
I feel like you're misremembering, but that's fine.
No. David, go back and play the clip again.
Oh, the confidence in that.
I am confident. You're wrong here. I am right. I mean, I was wrong originally. That was the point. I corrected myself. But I am right about what I was wrong about.
I can't wait to see the end result.
Connor is wrong. That's the important part here. What you want to say separately from this?
Yeah, there's just some. This one's not official yet, but there's a lot of talk. There's going to be some a new Batman Inc. book, which also launching in October or maybe November, depending on when it's ready. I think this is very unsurprising for me, given that we've been playing with Batman Inc. There's an annual coming up that's the Batman annual, which is basically Batman Inc. But we're under Ghostmaker. I'm like, yeah, this makes sense to have that return following this new iteration of the team.
It'll take a hell of a creative team to get me interested.
I'm not saying it's interesting. I'm saying it's unsurprising that it's coming, given the last 6 months of their usage.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not a big Batman Inc. guy as a rule, so.
We all know.
I will remain reserved until I have something to sing and dance about, or scream and shout. Alternatively, depending if they. I mean, I'm not worried about them cocking up Batman Inc. I don't care about that. But like, if they pull in another character into it that I feel they're cocking up by including them, then I'll.
Who could they possibly put into Batman Inc. that would ruin that?
Kite Man. Cold Snap. Don't you dare besmirch Cold Snap by putting him with Batman.
The good name of Cold Snap. He's the joke villain they take out in the first 2 pages.
The Honourable Cold Snap will not be besmirched by Batman Incorporated.
I'm pretty sure the Honourable Cold Snap has only ever been besmirched.
Yes, but he deserves to be besmirched by a better class of hero. The Rebirth Justice League, for example, prime example.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Can't wait for Cold Snap, Minister Blizzard, and Icicle Jr. to form that unholy trinity of sub-zero temperatures.
One day, Cold Snap's going to get his justice. And that justice is going to begin taken out by Batman Inc.
Nah, what we need to do is we need to do like an NWO Black and White versus Wolfpack situation where we have two like factions of Cold form. So you've got like Captain Cold heading one team, Mr. Freeze heading the other, and because you've got enough to have two teams now. Like, there's enough of them, right? You got one side, you got Mr. Freeze with Icicle and maybe Killer Frost with Cold Snap, and then the other side.
This is like an East Coast, West Coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I don't know if any other Ice villains identify themselves as not freezing, but absolutely, because like Cold's whole thing is I don't freeze things like Mr. Freeze does.
Yeah.
That I wonder if there's any other ones that hate the idea of being labeled as the Freeze villains, so they team up with him. So he gets Icicle Jr., he gets Minister Blizzard, and maybe he gets whoever's left.
You've pitched an entire DC event here.
Yes.
This is their summer event.
Yes. DC I'm trying. Do what you do? You do DC the logo, right? But you put the little circle so it's like, you know, C as in like the temperature, like, you know, as in, you know, Celsius.
Celsius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So detective, like 0 degree or 0 Celsius, detective Celsius. I don't know. There's something here. There's gold here.
You're really trying to work this in like they did with Deceased, and it's just not going for you.
There's a way of doing this, damn it. Oh, you could spin it.
I'm not sure there is.
Oh, you could spin it out at Jurassic League, right? You end Jurassic League with Mr. Freeze kicking down the door and saying, "What killed the dinosaurs?" The Ice Age. And that spins into our Ice Wars, or whatever we're going to call it.
It's a better name than Ice Wars.
But something Battle of the Sub-Zero something.
I definitely need a one shot with the Ballad of Cold Snap.
There you go. They can all get one shots. Why wouldn't they all have one shots? That's your tie-ins.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously. But Cold Snap gets the most important one shot, obviously.
Alright. Okay. Clearly we're on to a winning idea. DC, I will take a small commission, but you're free to use it otherwise.
Pretty sure they'll just do whatever they want.
I'll take a commission.
How much?
I think 5 million ought to cover me.
Was that all?
They can afford it.
I mean, probably, but that's not the point. You've done no work.
I've given them, like, not even gold. I've given them like crystal. I've given them ice crystal of an idea.
You didn't give them gold. You gave them cold.
Yes. Cold is the new gold. No one cares about gold anymore.
Oh.
All
Can we
right.
talk about some books, please?
Yes,
because this is nonsense.
Let's talk about books. All right. Detective Comics 1060, Mariko Tamaki and Nadia Shammas writing with Ivan Reis on the art. Our last issue dealt with various citizens who were doing like really heinous, like murdering crimes, but then kind of confessed, but also were not really villainous or had any criminal history. So it was like something was either making them do it, forcing them to do it, whatever it may be. Meanwhile, Riddler's doing his radio show and is probably connected to it, but there was no sort of direct link as of yet. And then the other thing is that one of the potential victims was Deb Donovan's daughter, who is a judge, and Bruce. We start this issue with Bruce taking her out for a date, and that's where we kick off.
A cheap date.
Well, yeah, he's not rich anymore.
Oh, that was a running joke. Yeah, that was a thing. Yeah.
So she gets a little miffed at times. Bruce is asking because he's doing a little detective work here. He's trying to like get some details and what might be going on, and she's not really having it. But yeah, and there's some jokes about how Deb would like investigate our dates in the past and other things like that. You know, I will say I do have like I think the art generally from Reis. Obviously, he's a very good artist, and by and large,
Bruce is inconsistent.
Well, it's the one panel that really bothers me is that after he's shown her to the door, there's like him smiling through the window of the door. I think looks really comically simple. And
it is, and the panel below that looks like sinister.
Yeah, I think that's my problem with it. Is that the very next panel, like he's so detailed and shady, and he's got all this expression in his face, and the panel before it is just this like flat smiling face. It's just like a happy smiley face.
Yeah. There's 2 pages before that as well. The top panel, it's like direct shot on Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
I can't quite place who he's modelled the face off, but it's someone specific that I recognise. It's like an actor or something.
Got a bit of a Chris Pine thing going, maybe.
Maybe that's not too far off, but it's. I don't think it's quite who I was going for. But I don't know. I can't quite place it. It's just off enough, but it's bugging me because I don't see it in any other panel except that one.
It's because it's much better. Generally, I think the art in this book is very good. I had a good time reading it. You know, I think his Riddler looks really good with a goatee, and you know, so
I'm digging the twirl on the mustache.
Oh yeah. So yeah, obviously Bruce is investigating things. You know, some nice panels of Batman up in a gargoyle in the Night City, all that sort of stuff. he goes to see Deb because there's someone broken into the office, and they skedaddle before Batman like really needs to deal with that, but he finds like some brunette hair that maybe gives him a hint of where to look. So it's and it's like a match for Darby Turner. If I have a critique about this storyline, perhaps, which I am enjoying by and large, is that there are so many names of these like characters been thrown around that we barely know, that it's kind of hard to keep track of like who they're talking about at times.
Yeah, Darby Turner, I only know because I've read these 2 issues back to back. When Bruce visits Donovan in the hospital, she says they almost met once at Darby Turner's party. So that's where that connection comes from.
Yeah, because when the name came up, I was like, okay, go on, explain to me who this is and why it's important.
Yeah, I think the odds of you remembering that a month later are slim.
Yeah,
it's peak writing for the trade.
Yeah, and it's not like the issue didn't make sense because of it or it threw too much of a hitch, but there was definitely a few names been thrown around that kind of took a minute to sort of recalibrate and kind of get into again. Batman goes to see this character, but ends up finding Talia instead. Which, I was like, okay, Talia's here. It's kind of weird, obviously Talia's so heavily in the crossover right now in the other storyline, but obviously this is just kind of separate to that.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, let's just do a chunk with Talia for some reason.
But she warns that Riddler, this is all Riddler. This is all Riddler playing with him, and she's listening to what he's saying because he's definitely putting in clues and whatever else. But the big crisis of the issue though is that Deb ends up being held at gunpoint by someone she was meeting, who again doesn't have a criminal past, seems to be someone who is otherwise normal, but is now holding Deb at gunpoint.
It's Darby Turner.
Yeah. Well, she uses a pseudonym though, because when Deb sees her, she says Miss Smith.
Yeah. But so, when Bruce gets there.
Yeah. So she tricks her. Batman shows up, and there's a bit of a standoff. And it's all very dramatic. You got the searchlights and all the rest of it looking up the side of the building, and this other guy runs in, and he's someone else who's also a victim of Riddler, and starts to actually finally say things that kind of make sense, like they're being forced. Like, if she doesn't do this, what's going to happen? Is going to be so much worse. That this is why they've been forced in. They've all been blackmailed essentially into doing these heinous things.
Yeah. Deb's been turning up that one of them had maybe killed someone. They were like 15, but it kind of got covered up. There was like, it was neglect from the parents. So it was all these circumstances. So there was never any record of it.
Yeah, some of them say like they were maybe accidental or whatever, but these are all things that aren't on record because they all went away in some fashion.
Yeah, and these are, I think, all people in the law profession, like police, judges, those sorts of things. The people who are supposed to be the good people, in theory.
Which leads to the cliffhanger, which is there's Deb's daughter who shoots this guy when he's about to start talking about everything, and the envelopes that they're getting. There's a gunshot, and then it's her holding the gun. So it's like, oh wait, okay. So obviously Deb's heavily invested in this because her daughter now's been made to kill someone. There has to be consequences for that in some fashion, one way or another. So
yeah, which means she's also presumably being blackmailed.
Aye, Caroline, her daughter. Yeah.
There was some implication in the previous issue that she knew about the bombs beforehand. She didn't just find them by chance.
Yeah, I don't even think it was an implication. Didn't she have a whole conversation where she said something like, they were supposed to go off, or there's something, I can't remember exactly. It's been a month, but
yeah, she didn't know the exact details of it all though, but she just knew kind of something about them.
Yeah. So I mean, actually, I'm enjoying the kind of the outright mystery of it, and Riddler's clearly connected to it, but he's just doing this kind of cocky radio host kind of thing going on right now. I don't think it's as tight as the last issue, and I think part of that is probably too many names been thrown around that I don't remember. But
yeah, that's fair.
I'm enjoying how much of a sort of not quite the same way that the movie did, of course, but it is very much like Riddler's playing with the city with all these clues and like taunting everyone.
I think I enjoy this equally as much as I did that movie.
I'm not sure what you're saying exactly there, but go on.
I said the movie's just fine. It's very overrated. Much like this story, it's fine.
I disagree on the movie quite substantially, but
no, it's fine. You can be wrong.
You can be underrating it and be wrong. That's fine. But I mean, so you're saying this issue is just fine? That's where you're landing on?
I mean, this issue, yeah, and kind of this, this story so far as a pairing, like it's fine. It's not setting my world on fire. I think it's got, like I say, it's got solid art from Reis for the most part. I think it, like I say, it feels a little bit clunky. There's a lot of names being thrown around. There's a lot of threads that I feel like it's being written for a trade, and it might read better in the trade. I don't know, in the long run, but monthly, it definitely feels like it's fragmented.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit fair. I mean, I'm still typically enjoying it, but there's definitely a few little hurdles there that probably will be cleaned up by just reading it in one sitting.
Yeah.
So, it's not like a huge deal, but I am digging how different this feels to the more sort of big action that's going on in like Batman Shadow War. Like this is very different in terms of what type of story it's telling, which I appreciate.
No, I definitely agree with that. I always want Detective and Batman to feel pretty different.
Yeah.
So you've got that variety, and like this is definitely not a bad book by any means. Like this is perfectly solid. It's enjoyable enough. Like I don't feel like you're wasting your money by reading it.
No. Did you read the backup?
I didn't, just because of time.
Yeah, I didn't, because I saw like kind of what it was last issue and said, you know what,
Gotham Girl, yeah.
For the first time, I even know if it was. I don't even think I saw Gotham Girl necessarily, but whatever I saw, I was like, nah, I'm up to now to this one. Matt did read the last backup, but maybe he'll tell us next time how it's faring. But what are you rating the book?
I'll give it like a 6.5.
Yeah, I think I'm a comfortable point above you. I think 7.5 is kind of where I'm sitting. There's a few things knocking it down from being great, but yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's good. So, that is Detective. Action Comics 1043, Philip K. Johnson, writing with Riccardo Federici on the art. I was confused by the cover because it seemed like it was trying to say Conrad helped on the art, but also did the art for the backup, but I think it was just the backup.
Yeah, he's obviously definitely the backup artist.
Yeah,
maybe they just dual credited him.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything on the main story that looked like it was done by someone else. So.
Oh no, he did. He did.
Oh, he did?
It's I think it's that sequence towards the end where it's there's a lot of bright colors, like bright orange, purple, pink.
Okay.
I think it's those pages.
Oh, so it's like 2 pages. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Fair enough then. So yeah, the Warworld saga is raging on. This technically is, I think, the start of the next like arc in the Warworld saga. Going from the title page.
Yeah, this is Warworld Revolution now.
Yeah. So which is cool, and I do think it does, like, even that first page is much warmer compared to what we've been seeing. It's still Federici, but it's got a much warmer tone in the colors, and Clark's outfit's even getting more elaborate as he goes. Like, it's still very much gladiatorial, but he's got more of a cape now. He's got like, the red coming off the belt.
There's color to it. There's red and blue in there now. It's not just the wrought iron metal. Like, of just he's very functional before.
Yeah, it's almost like the colors coming back to the book as Clark's getting closer to saving everyone and inspiring everyone to like do things. So the first chunk of the book is them saving Manchester Black from Teacher, one of Mongol's main dudes, and they succeed, and there's some nice big action here. I love it's the page where I think it's only like page 3 or something like that, but it's when Superman and that first come into the room, and they're in sort of the blue hue at the entrance, and Teacher's sort of like down in his ass. I love that, the atmosphere of that. And then he introduces his big like mech fighter to like take on Superman, and Superman.
Orphan, I think they called it.
Yeah, there you go. So we got a big action scene. It's fun stuff. Art's phenomenal as it's been with Federici. Yeah. No denying that. And we get into some other lore things that we're going here. We know that Mongol's got Apollo and is like seemingly has like broken him down and turned him, is the implication in this scene. where like we're going to use him to help get more slaves, which leads to like sort of this next dark scene where we're on this random planet, and these aliens seem very peaceful. They're farmers. They seem like really docile and just like peaceful creatures. And then they look up and like War World's there, and all of Mongol ships are coming down to enslave them.
I love how it's just this full page of it to show it off.
It's yeah, like these creatures as well. Like they couldn't look less threatening. Like they're like there's kind of a conscious effort put into making them look like the friendly alien. Just to give you that real feeling instantly of they don't deserve this.
Yeah, and a lot of them look like they're older as well, just in the way they're drawn, like and maybe that's not true of these aliens, but they have that impression.
Yeah, one's got like a cane, and maybe they all have canes, but yeah, like we associate that with being old and like a bit more, a bit weaker, a bit more, less threatening. And there's this sort of discussion that happens with Superman and Steel and the others about like what to do next, and they've got some options here. So we get this like lore of this other like being in Warworld, the one that has Enchantress. So the choice is like, do we go save Enchantress? But we get this explanation of who's keeping Enchantress, and it's this being Mother who can kill entire worlds, and the Mongol who is basically made a deal with her. He was the only one who survived, and it's kind of what led to him killing Mongol who was to become the Mongol who is, by teaming up, because this thing was killing everyone, killing all the war zones. And instead of fighting it, he made a deal with her, and that's kind of like what's brought her on board. So, I thought this was a really creepy thing. I will say the 2-page layout here, I don't think was the most obvious the order to read it in.
Oh, I'm going to completely disagree here, because I think there's a fantastic little lettering touch that made it so easy for me.
I mean, you can argue all you want, but I still read it the wrong way first.
Okay, but functionally, I think they made it easy. I think you got it wrong somehow. I don't know how, because obviously, so looking at it, you're in the top left.
And to be fair, this is now 2 issues in a row I've had this problem where there's been a 2-page layout that I have read the wrong way to begin with.
Oh my god! If the 2-page layout in the previous issue is the one I posted on Twitter yesterday and talked about how they are making it so easy to follow, it was that page, then you are so stupid.
I disagree.
So I don't think this one's as obvious as the last issue's one where they had the big sound
let me
effect.
explain my problem, right? Let me explain how I read it first, or what I think is confusing about it. Is I think the coloring makes it look like you go across to the right and then go back diagonally and do like a Z shape. That's what the coloring of these panels makes it look like to me.
Okay. Do you want to know what makes it for me that is easy to follow?
That one narration box that overlaps?
Yeah. So you go there, you're on that panel, you look what's still in that panel. Oh, there's a narration box that's still kind of in this panel, so you read that next. And that's half in the next panel, so it's clear that you go down from there. And then you keep following it down, and then at the very bottom of that side of the page, you end with the ellipses. So then, okay, so you're looking for the ellipses, which is back at the top.
I mean, fundamentally, you're just reading it as if it's 2 single pages, because you're just going down the page and then down the next page, which is fine. But my eye was not drawn to there initially. My eye went elsewhere.
The only thing I can suggest as to why you might have missed that then.
I also think it's weird that narration box is a different color from every other narration box on the page.
That's what I was going to say. Is I think there are subjects that highlights it because it makes it different, so your eye is drawn to it. But I think because it's black, maybe it just blends in a little bit too much. Is it for you?
The rest are all light green, so I naturally look for the next light green box.
Yeah, so it could be that.
So, I mean,
I will say if the page from last issue is the one I think it is, you are mad.
I don't think so. I think it genuinely did not work. At least at a glance. Like, I understood the logic of it once I actually looked at how it was supposed to be read, but it did not work for me at the time. I went the wrong way first. And here, I went the wrong way first. Now, it didn't take me long to realize I was going the wrong way, because like obviously the narration box made no sense. Like, it obviously didn't follow on from anything, so I was like, okay, I'm clearly going the wrong way here, and then went elsewhere. But I do think that black narration box being different from the rest, and I understand that it's someone else speaking, and that's why, but it made my eye not think it was next. So, no.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a huge deal. You realize you're going the wrong way, and you.
It's funny because I was going to compliment this page for making it obvious for me by having that overlapping panel.
I disagree, because the color, because you can see a clear diagonal in the coloring here, where there's this sort of like muted purple or lavender, as I'd maybe say, going down that diagonal. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Right, and then it kind of sort of like you get a sort of slightly different shade of purple going then right from there. So it kind of felt like that was leading me across as if it was going to be like a Z shape. So my eye immediately thought it was going that direction in the layout.
Interesting.
So, I mean, it is entirely possible that while you can stack the deck as much as possible, and there is obviously really smart techniques to laying out a comic book page, there is a level of subjectivity that some people will just never go exactly the way you think they're supposed to go.
Yeah, it's true. It's something I've seen like game developers talk about a lot, where you'll have some people complain that, why do you make this path so obvious? Why do you like put like, is it some games you know when you to climb this wall,
the highlighted
put,
yellow,
like, yellow markers,
yeah,
like yellow paint or something, and it's because they'll do testing, and as obvious as it seems, if you don't put that there, the amount of people that just won't understand that that's the way to go is staggering. And so you end up insulting some people to make the majority find it, but even still, like, some people won't. So I guess this is something
I think
where
the people who complain about those like markers to sort of give you a hint of where to go, I think if you, because there's some games that won't have them, I think when you find them playing those games, they will then complain that there's not all the time, sometimes they will realize where they're supposed to go, but there's always going to be segments where they go, oh wait, no, I don't remember where am I to go here, because I felt that in some games where I don't think the next area to go is clear, and you get frustrated because it's a bit awkward. So
I think it's a similar thing from a creative standpoint of the artist and the letterers here. Like, you can do all these tricks to start the day, but some people just
and I think
read it wrong.
And the other thing I'd add on here as well is that it also kind of feels like there's a horizontal divide on the page, so I naturally feel like I'm supposed to go left to right, because that's just how I read. Because too often when you get a 2-page layout, they'll treat it as if it's one big page, so you go left to right across the top first, and then you go down and go left to right again. So
yeah, I get that. They like the effect of the overlaying panels here, though, which is why it's the 2 pages, right?
Yeah, no,
fundamentally you could split this into 2 separate single pages quite easily.
You could actually nudging a couple of panels left or right, and then just there you go, divide.
But this has that. By having it this way, you keep that more jumbled, that kind of multi-layered effect that these panels give it, which is kind of the point. It is kind of showing off, these layers, the story that's going on. That there's more that meets the eye. That's the effect it's trying to give. I don't think it succeeds in that, and that only really works by having it as 2 pages.
Yeah, my eyes went the wrong way first. It didn't feel natural to me to go down. So, like that's all I can basically. I mean, fundamentally, my arguments are always going to come back to my eyes went another way. So I don't think it's this perfect execution of what it's doing. I still like pretty much what's on the page. I like the story it tells, and I think it all looks very good. But fundamentally, I just didn't go the right way first. So yeah, you've got this, and then Mongo has like seemingly enslaved this world. He's got like a pile of dead bodies that he's sitting on.
Classic Mongol.
Yeah, and we get this sleazeball from the United Worlds, because I think this was like hinted at a while ago that there was one or a couple of people on the United Planets who were working with Mongol and conspiring to basically like, and they seem to think that this is keeping the peace by like playing nice with Mongol. And Mongol's like, oh, you've been developing ships. I'm not happy about this. And you know what? I know that this is not intentional, because you know that I would kill you so easily if it was. So I will accept an apology of you letting me take this planet of slaves, and also giving me, let's say, what was it, 10,000 of these ships that you've been building? Maybe it was just 1,000, but
no, it was 10,000.
Was it 10,000?
Yeah.
So you're kind of frustrated because you're like, God damn it, there's people in the United Worlds who are like, or United Planet, sorry, who are keeping, like, helping this like move along and stopping other help from coming in and not letting them act. Which really hurts because you actually, back in those first couple of pages of this planet, one of the things one of them says is call the United Planets when Mongol
exactly, yeah. And
show up.
it's a damning indictment of the bureaucracy of these sorts of institutions where, yes, on the whole, they're well-meaning, clearly, but with that many heads, butting, it's always going to take time to come to decisions. There's always going to be problems that arise from all these different viewpoints, and with the amount of compromises that they have to come to, that they're not perfect, and that's clearly showing here with the United Planets as well. That some people just they're out for their own gain as well.
Yeah. So this idea of telling the kids stories is kind of like coming back into that's been kind of a running theme since the start of this run. And he the storyteller here, what's his name here? I never remember these all these extra Kryptonians and Thelosian names, but he talks to Superman, and is talking about the language in these like under passage caves.
It mentions here that with the Genesis fragment stuff down here, some of his powers are starting to come back.
Yeah, but he's also worried that all the Thelosians' powers will kick in because that might cause just complete chaos. Yeah. And that's the other thing is like Darkseid not Darkseid, such a slip there. I've done that a couple of times. Mongol, come on, they're kind of similar.
They are absolutely nothing alike.
Come on. It's
like you're not even reading this story that clearly tells us how Mongol is his own unique, independent being.
They could be brothers. They totally could be
cousins at best.
Right. But yeah, he wants to like keep taking more of this Genesis stuff from the core of the war world, and like he's being warned by his like lieutenants that hey, this might like turn war world into like Krypton here. This could be a problem.
Yeah. It's like maybe hold out a little bit.
Nah, so I thought that was just an interesting little detail. But yeah, he talks about this backstory with all these this very colorful page of the mighty Olgrun, the first and greatest of the gods, and couldn't really be defeated, but the powers that be at the time were able to split him into like 5 like fragments, or was it 7 fragments?
7.
And if it's ever reformed by someone who's worthy, it'll be okay, and he'll be this force for good when reformed. But if he's formed by someone who's unworthy, then the planet or the universe even is just screwed. So that's what Mongol apparently is ultimately trying to do.
And it does seem that one of the things is the yellow kind of crystal thing that Mongol has on his chest. That's one of the aspects of the 7.
Yeah, very interesting. It's a little bit Infinity Stones in some ways, you could argue. A
little bit. I mean, fundamentally different enough in their purpose that they share a similar look, I suppose. But...
Yeah, the end result's a little different. It's still kind of this ultimate power that he's vying for, and obviously, the visual of having like these different gems that are going to ultimately come together, but. Obviously, it's not a gauntlet, and I suspect that once they do come together, it's going to create a life form. So it's not going to be like a glove or anything like that, where they're all filled up. But but there's definitely some parallels, just mechanically, of like the villain looking for these things and trying to bring them together again. But but there's this interesting idea of like it's a kind of a one-time thing, and if like someone who's worthy, and obviously the implication here is Superman's the worthy one who might be able to like turn it into a force for good. Like that'll do something magical, but the war world itself is actually in part built to deal with this sort of shit. So, very interesting.
Was designed as a planet to house one of these 7.
Which is interesting because the origins of Warworld have been kind of murky and like intentionally. I mean, I think there've been some explanations in the past that they've retconned and stuff, but like it's meant to be this mysterious thing.
This is using the approach. It's a similar approach to what they did with like Hawkman recently, where this is an older answer that doesn't undermine any of the other things either, because this is like, oh no, this is so old that it was forgotten about by everyone.
Yeah, plus it's implying as well that there's 6 other potential war worlds, or maybe they're not called that, but like and just similar things that exist. So maybe some of them are also war worlds that we've had used before, or maybe we'll go into what those other 6 things could be and where they are.
Yeah.
So So yeah, you assume the one Mongol has is the one that was housed in this war world.
Yeah, did you read the backup?
No.
Okay. I would suggest maybe going back and reading the backup at some point because it is by it's by Johnson.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Yeah. And it is Byler telling a story to the kids, and it is the story of the first Mongol, basically, like coming to this planet, killing a being and taking his armor, and his armor, turned out to like be the guy's skin, and he had this jewel in the chest, and he took that, and the jewel has been passed down from every Mongol to Mongol.
Yeah, I will go back and read this. Do you know, it's funny because I've just been for so long it was doing those weird. Was it
Midnighter?
Yeah, it was like Midnighter stories and stuff like that.
I think there's a Martian Manhunter one after that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of as well, Martian Manhunter. That I just didn't even bother checking to see what the backup. I just assumed it was the next part of whatever I hadn't been reading.
Yeah, this one is actually Mongol backstory, and it's about the first Mongol coming to what I assume is ancient war world, and taking that jewel for himself.
That actually sounds quite interesting. Sounds like good accompanying material, actually.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably not essential, but it is significantly additive to the story that I would recommend it if anyone else has skipped it, because easy to do, especially with all the previous backups we've been having. If you've not been reading them, you just get into the habit of not checking. I just happened to glance and see his name at the top, and I was like, oh, I'll read this one.
Yeah,
yeah.
It ends in an action cliffhanger, the main story, though, with the Mongol ships coming in and causing chaos. So,
Yeah.
So we'll have some action to kick off next time, which is cool. Now I'm looking at this, I can actually tell the last couple of pages are different artists. I was so caught up in the story, I didn't even notice when I read it.
Yeah, I think it changes once. So you have them leading through the caves, and when they come out the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of an awkward transition now that I'm looking at it, to be honest. But
it's just something where one more page of Federici and then transition with all the colours inside the story would have been perfect. But it's not the worst, and the fact that you didn't even notice is.
I think I was just so into the story because there was so much like lore being dumped on me in this issue, and I don't mean that as a complaint, but between the mother's backstory, these gems that are going to reassemble this ancient being either for good or worse, like there was so much to like take in. I was just trying to like process it all.
Yeah, and as it transitions, he's talking about the source myths and talking about there's versions of these on like all sorts of worlds and across the multiverse. The sword and the stone. He mentions, the family, saving the child, that's been sent away in a ship. That becomes a great hero, So it's you are pretty engrossed in that story, I guess, is kind of the point.
Which is not a bad thing by any means. Like it means like the lore that he's given us is interesting, and I'm kind of fascinated by a lot of it. It is intriguing that they're letting him kind of plug in the backstory of what Warworld and Mongol and like because this is all pretty big stuff. That's kind of assuming they don't just disregard it too quickly. Does kind of like fill in a lot of backstory to just like DC lore as a whole. I mean, it's tied maybe more to Superman because we think of Mongol as a Superman villain, but it's kind of just larger DC at a certain point as well.
Yeah, it depends how much they want to play with it as well. With these other 6 worlds that may be out there that house these jewels.
I mean, for all we know, this could not be dealt with in this run because Superman will win, and we'll go where we go. And then this idea of these war worlds with different gems could be like an event down the line. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be that, but it totally could be. It sounds like it could be an event.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a case that Superman will reforge these and summon forth the god to be the hero. It could be just a case of he stops Mongol and that's enough for now.
But he very well might do, though. That may just be what the story builds up to.
Very well might. Yeah.
So no, a solid issue though. What you giving it?
Ooh, I think it's a significant step down from the previous issue for me, which was like a 10. So I'll give this one like an 8.5, which is still very good.
Yeah, it was great stuff last issue. Barring some layout confusion.
Which I thought was a mastery of the craft. If anyone wants to check out my Twitter to see that.
I would say it's a blip in their otherwise craft, but sure. um, yeah, I'm happy to give this. I think I'm probably going to go with an 8.5 as well. The art change, once you do notice it, is a bit of a shame. But I do like a lot of the lore that this is sort of adding in, and I dig kind of the villainy of Mongol working with someone in United Planets. Them leaving a planet to be taken by him is really dark and sinister and builds up him as a villain more, and all this lore. Especially the mother lore I thought was quite good, and kind of the orange of this Mongol who he made this deal with this like new devil effectively, and that's what led to him becoming the Mongol who is. I kind of like that little detail that was nestled in there. So
I think it's quite interesting having the backup be kind of the origins of the first Mongol in the same issue as this kind of of the current Mongol.
Yeah, that's a nice contrast, or not even contrast, but like a thematic link that works. Yeah. So that's cool. All right, Deathstroke Inc. issue 9, I should say. Joshua Williamson writing with Paolo Pantalena on the art. This is the next part of Shadow War. It is worth mentioning that these two issues that we're about to talk about are the final regular issues. We've got the Omega issue next, which I think is next week. So that's the conclusion. So this is the penultimate 2 issues of.
I'm gonna just put this out there. Kind of glad it's almost over.
Oh, not happy, are we?
It's starting to just feel a bit there. Like it's a bit messy. It's a little bit dragged out. It's not particularly exciting right now.
I think I'm a bit more positive. I think I don't think it's like a be all end all story, but I think it's a generally fun light event. If that a light event. Does that make sense? Like
it does.
They're dealing with the Respawn death here. They try to save him, but it's not happening. So it kind of reiterates that they want to go after Talia. Batman and Robin are with the fake Deathstroke. There's some teases this issue. Obviously, we know who it is by the end of next issue, so we'll save that conversation for the next book. But this one, has art that feels a lot more like some of the art that's been in the run. Like this is the same whiplash I had last month with these 2 issues back to back. Is that the art change when we go to Robin is severe.
Yeah, I think that's part of why I'm feeling this about this event as well, because it feels kind of messy from an art perspective as well.
Yeah. The big thing here though is that Deathstroke goes back to where the rest of his team are being held, the Secret Society, and take them. There's a bit of a confrontation with Ghostmaker. They compare their dick sizes a little bit, and Deathstroke breaks Clown Hunter's arm. Is it just me, or the art here, just to give a little bit of criticism to Paolo Pantalena here, is that Clown Hunter suddenly looks like he's about 10 years older than he has in every single appearance he's ever had. See when Deathstroke's holding him to the gun to his head? He looks like this muscly, like 20-year-old all of a sudden.
Yeah, I think the bit that gets me is the page after. The top right panel where Ghostmaker's behind him, and he's got his, he looks so old there.
He looks like an old man. He looks like he's in his 70s, like going, these damn kids.
He does, yeah.
He looks so different. But yeah, the main thing is he gets his team back, and they fly off. And is that a Batwing he's stolen? It looks like a Batwing.
Looks like one, yeah.
If not, just a jet. There is actually a reference here to the Black Canary story from the one shot, which I'm like, this was enough. I could have just read this panel and not need to read the rest of those crappy stories. The Black Canary one was fine, but the rest of them were so bad that I wish I hadn't read the damn thing. So yeah, they're talking about the incoming threat. Things are bubbling up, and the cliffhanger is Deathstroke's coming with his team to kill Talia, which is what the fake Deathstrokes wanted the whole time. Is this is the Shadow War. He wants them to go to war with each other. So
yeah, for reasons that will presumably become clearer, but once you know who he is. But right now, it's because of reasons.
Yeah.
Right now, being in this issue, not obviously
of course
as we're talking about it.
Yeah. This is the weird thing about having 2 of these issues in the same week, is that I do kind of feel like we're rushing through this one a little bit because all the juicy stuff's in the next one.
Yeah.
So
there is just confirmation that it is a bat plane, because the ninjas tell Talia there's a bat plane on the way.
That's right.
Should they let her land? And he's like, yeah, Batman's coming. And then obviously it's Deathstroke. And this is where we get the Mother Soul being like, yeah, Nesia's going to rise.
That's
so
right.
assumingly, Nesia is the demon that she's been going on about for, I don't know, 6 issues in the Robin book, whatever. For
Yeah,
longer.
I think it's interesting to like finally give that demon some name and like a story related to it. So we'll see where this goes in the present day stuff.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me because I've been less into that stuff in World's Finest than you were by quite a margin.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, we're both pretty into it, I'd say.
Yeah, so the Nesia stuff, this connecting this to that took away some of the mystery and kind of made it significantly less interesting for me, at least. But I assume if you've been enjoying that, this is kind of cool.
I mean, even if you don't like what they've done with it in World's Finest, there's nothing to say that when it comes up again properly here, or maybe it even comes up in the sense that, you know, okay, the hope is for them to resurrect Neza or bring him back, but maybe they won't. Maybe it's just cool that we have more context for what they're trying to raise because of the other book, kind of thing.
Maybe, but I think for me, the imagination of like just that mysterious demon was more interesting than what I've seen of Nesia.
That's fair. Angel Breaker's outfit's still stupid and
90s as shit.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I'm not necessarily saying the book is overly sexist or anything, but I will say that outfit just comes from a time when outfits for female characters was very pervy, and this one falls into that category. So, yeah, you know, it is what it is. But so. Yeah, I guess we'll just rate this one and move on to the next issue because I don't really have much left to add on this one in particular. So yeah,
no, I'll just give it like a 6. It's fine, but I'm kind of not loving it.
That's fine. I'm definitely more. I'll probably more like a 7 range. It's kind of weird because we are kind of just like speeding through this one because just the big revelation comes in the next issue and we already have that to talk about. So. It is kind of weird, but that will neatly take us on.
I think it's important that they did put those in 2 separate weeks, into the same week, because otherwise that issue would have felt like, oh, is that all we're getting this week?
Yeah, possibly. It may have felt that way, but it didn't. No, so maybe that was just smart scheduling that these come together. Robin, issue 14 is the next part of Shadow War. Joshua Williamson writing again, Roger Cruz on art this time. So. The big thing at the end, obviously, is the reveal of who it is, right? And we build up to it throughout the issue. But there's actually a lot of other things in this issue I like and think are notable. So they're going with Batman Inc. to try and stop the Shadow War, try and stop Slade and Talia from killing each other. There's some battle fights going on with them, so it does feel like a bit more of a war, this issue. Deathstroke and Talia go toe-to-toe. They have some, mean words. He calls Damien like Batman and Talia's little bastard and things like that. He's definitely not pulling back. There's a moment later on when Ghostmaker and Angel Breaker like meet each other. They clearly know each other, and she has a line to the effect of, "You say you're better than Batman, but you just wanted to make me your Catwoman." Before they start fighting. I got an odd chuckle out of that, not because I necessarily think it's good, but because it was kind of this weird, like, yeah, that's what's wrong with you. You're just as shit as him because you're both like, like crappy copies of better characters.
Yeah, I thought this was really cringy and just highlighted the problem. I kind of, it was rough, that writing for me.
Yeah, that moment. The moment I did love, though, I actually really love Damien and his balls when he decides to jump out the plane. Batman's not giving him a glider. He's like, no, I need you safe. You're going back to Gotham. You're not going down for this fight. And Damien's like, you're going to have to trust me one way or the other. And he just leaps out the plane. I actually thought this moment was kind of badass for Damien. So obviously Batman has to jump out and like stop him from dying. But the idea that, well, now we're on the ground, so tough tits, I'm here. So
I like the end result. I like Damien jumping out. A lot of the actual argument before he jumps, I felt was a little bit forced, perhaps. Like just the idea of Bruce being like, "No, you're staying behind. This is too dangerous." Does kind of feels that character. If he'd said because this is too personal for you with Talia, and Rosa's down there, like stuff like that. I could see him going that route, but just too dangerous, and that being the cause of the argument, and Robin having to respond along those lines. Kind of made it feel like a bit of a forced argument for the sake of some drama to give Damien a reason to just jump out. Which, I like the end result, but the page was kind of a bit weird for me.
I don't know, like it is a bit of a bullshit argument from Batman, but I think that's kind of the point, is that it is bullshit. And Damien kind of tries to very quickly swerves it into, is this about Alfred? Is this about, and Batman, he gets to kind of apologize for that shitty thing he said a few issues ago, because he said it was, if he was there, Alfred would never have died. And he's like, look, that was a shitty thing to say. Alfred's death was never your fault. It was mine, because I should have been there. But no, I like this moment. I thought that was a really good big beat. And it made Damien come off like a little badass. So they run in. I do like that, immediately Rose first of all saves Damien, because he's about to be ambushed by a ninja, but then kind of tells him about Respawn, and this is again another death for Damien to deal with, because obviously he wasn't super attached to him yet, but this was kind of like a brother. He was kind of like forming something with him, and his brief interaction with him. So this again is another person that's died because of what's went down between characters. And it's interesting that Talia is to blame for that death, actually. This under her orders that, everything's going down. So, they come in, and the writers give Talia the victory here. It seems like Deathstroke's won. She catches the sword as it's coming down for her. This is a decent page, action-wise, I thought. And then stabs Deathstroke as she yells, "I am the dragon." Because he said she was chasing the dragon before. So it did make sense in context. It wasn't just a silly...
It did, yeah.
Because obviously you'd probably be thinking demon would make more sense, but it was set up in the previous page.
Yeah, it was contextual.
But yeah, so at this point, he didn't kill grandfather. Damien tells Talia, and she's like, well, so look, at this point she was just happy to kill him. And obviously Rose has to deal with the fact that her father seemingly lying there dead. Obviously, I suspect that Deathstroke will somehow...
I mean, he has a healing factor, and there's a Lazarus pit knocking around, if not.
That is very true. And that's when fake Deathstroke comes in. And there was a nice tease, actually, in the last issue, in Deathstroke Inc., that he's hiding his accent when he was talking to Batman and Robin, which did get me thinking. I was like, oh, where's he from? Try to make me think of who it was. So the big reveal here, though, as it starts to be a bit of an earthquake, which is a bit of a clue as well. He takes off his mask, and the final page reveal is that this is Geoforce. And it sort of builds up to it as well, because he starts talking about his country. He starts talking about Markovia. So it's not it builds up. So if you know who this is, if you're familiar with Geoforce, you'll sort of get it right before the page reveals. And credit, I think, to Matt, who kind of called this.
Did he?
He was definitely talking about Geoforce and Markovia recently for some reason. Maybe it wasn't to do with this, but I thought of Matt when I turned this page. It's
possible I wasn't here for when he said this.
It's possible.
Alternatively, I just don't remember him saying it. Because
yes, that's fair.
But I will. If Matt called it, then fair enough.
Do not fear, people. Matt will be here next week for the final of the story, so we'll get to talk about it properly then.
And let's be honest, if he called it, he will be smug about it in gloat. He won't miss that opportunity.
That is very true. So we'll get all of Matt's opinions on this being Geoforce next week. But I'm okay with this reveal. I don't necessarily know exactly what his motivations are yet. He's obviously speaking very vaguely about what Talia and Deathstroke have done to his family and his country and whatever, but I'm sure we'll get more concrete stuff on it. No pun intended. Next issue.
It feels like, sure, he has some level of motivation, like Talia and Deathstroke have done things, but this still feels like maybe it's excessive.
On his part, you think it's excessive that he's got to this length?
This is a very elaborate plan.
Okay. I did enjoy the reveal. I enjoyed who this was, because I think I was partially worried it was going to be another either I think Grant was somehow Grant's back and he's the fake Deathstroke, or there was those thoughts running through my head that it was going to be someone related to either Deathstroke, Batman, or Talia, right? It was going to be someone related to them. I was kind of pleased that it's it's a character that we've not seen too much of in a long time, and it brings with him his own mythology and history with the the Titans and Markovia, all that stuff is more interesting to me than it being like some other like basically I was worried it was going to be like who Respawn turned out to be, which
another one of them.
Yeah, which I didn't hate. Like ultimately it worked out all right, but like
I'm glad it didn't, because that was essentially what they pulled in Batman Inc. with the other Robin clones.
Right? Yeah. So, but it was definitely not as exciting as when we were theorizing who that Deathstroke kid could be, in the Robin tournament. So I'm happy that this turned out to be, this is actually a character who has a history, who we can talk about, and when we get some more context of his motivations, we can sort of discuss if that works, if it doesn't, do we like it, do we not, whatever.
At face value on the reveal, I don't hate it. I'm not like super pumped for it, but if they give me some good context in the next issue, I'll be totally fine with it.
Also, this is not obviously unique to this reveal. I'm looking at the page of Geoforce, and all I can see when I look at the letters GF is girlfriend. I don't like. I don't know why, but I see GF and I see the word girlfriend popping out in my head.
Well, you've just clearly not read enough things with Geoforce in.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just I see it abbreviated enough online, and that's just what GF means. BF and GF, they just mean girlfriend and boyfriend.
You just need to read more Geoforce. Recondition your brain.
Oh yeah, what Geoforce run would you recommend?
You could sign up to DC Infinite. It's launched over here now. You can read all the Geoforce you want. You can read every issue that's ever featured Geoforce.
No. You said what Geoforce books have there been? No, what is he in? Is there any Geoforce?
Did I say read a Geoforce book?
I said recommend me a Geoforce run. That's what I said. Connor's doing some quick research to see if there's ever been a miniseries called Geoforce.
I am. I don't know.
Has he never had a solo miniseries at least? No?
I don't know. They're not helping me here with these.
Oh, it's a shame. Poor Geoforce.
You can just read lots of the Outsiders.
This is why he's going to these lands. He's pissed that he's never had a solo series of any kind. Not even a wee 4-issue mini to call his own.
That could be it. Yeah.
What a shame.
But he's been in 459 issues. According to Comic Vine.
How many is Cold Snap been in?
You want me to actually check?
Is it more than a dozen? Is it even a dozen?
Hang on, I've got two different. It's significantly more than a dozen.
Okay, I'm going to guess 87.
Okay, it's less than that, but it's
okay. What is it?
49 issues.
Oh yeah, not bad. That's
And funnily enough, first appeared in Batman and the Outsiders, which is where your boy Geoforce hangs out. I found his real name.
What, Coolsap?
Yeah. Daryl. No surname, just Daryl.
Just Daryl.
Just Daryl. Not much is known about Cold Snap except that he's in love with fellow teammate Heatstroke.
Well, opposites do attract, after all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I have no idea how up to date this website is, so
sure, yeah.
That 49 issues.
Well, it's like he's been in a lot of issues recently. Like I think the last time we saw him was probably in that issue that made us make fun of him.
Yeah. Oh no, that's not true.
Oh no, when did he pop up?
He was in the other history of the DC universe. The John Ridley one.
Oh yeah, I think he might be because he did pop up in Black Lightning, the TV show, and I'm not sure if they had changed him or what, but maybe he is just traditionally black in the comics as well, and that's why he popped up in that.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, my book. There you go.
There you go. Your boy Cold Snap has 49 appearances. We can celebrate at the next one. With 50.
50th appearance. Next time he shows up in a comic. DC, give it to us. Give us that 50th Cold Snap appearance.
We give it a one shot. 50th appearance special.
All right. What are you rating Robin 14?
I think I'll give it a 7. I think it's better than the previous issue. I think that it helps that it's coming towards a conclusion, so it's starting to actually give some answers. And I think the art is significantly better than Pantalena's art, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I give it honest. I might be tempted to stretch this to an 8. I liked some of the stuff earlier on more than you did with Robin and Batman, and I dig that this actually felt like there was actually the Shadow War was happening finally. It felt like there was actually a conflict like playing out in a big battle, and I enjoyed Rose and Damien's interactions again, and them talking to her interaction with Batman, and then ultimately the fight with Talia and Slade. I think was mostly pretty good. I think the ending of it was particularly well handled and felt quite, I don't know if epic's the right word, but it felt like a nice tense fight where like she got a one up at the end, so it felt kind of cool. Maybe it's because that sword like catch move was very similar to the season 2 finale of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when the monster in Jealous tries to strike Buffy with a sword, and she closes her eyes and goes with her hands and catches the sword right in front of her face. Very, very similar to what Talia pulled off here.
Put me on my misery. I'm so glad I don't have to listen to this bullshit for at least 2 weeks.
So easy. And this isn't even the vampire book.
I know. That's the problem.
Oh, and they gave me an easy one later as well. They've just laid me up for a nice little 2 point.
You've just wasted your efforts.
Why do you? Why
you get one? No, you get one.
Why are you under this idea that I can only do one per episode? This is not a rule.
It is. It is. You get one.
All right. Yeah, 8 out of 10 from me on Robin issue 40. Okay. Right, finally, Car can stop being a moody little prick and start being positive, because it's time to talk about the Swamp Thing issue 13. Ramvi. What?
What do you mean stop being moody? I've been positive on multiple books.
You've been like, okay, maybe action, but you've been on the negative side of everything else.
I mean, maybe, but I did give action like 8.5, so screw you.
The Swamp Thing issue 13, Ram V writing, Mike Perkins on the art. How do you follow up a 10 with something that clocks in about a 9? Quite comfortably.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm not complaining. I am not complaining. This is an excellent issue. It's absolutely fantastic.
Is it a 9 or is it another 10?
Let's find out, shall we? We'll delve in. So, get a bit of Levi and Jessica lying in bed, and he's kind of explaining, his malaise and why he was just sort of being a tree for a while.
Just chilling.
Effectively. But of course, but ultimately says that, like, he has to, morality lies in making choices. That's the line on page 3 that I really liked, is that you can't just sort of be impartial and stay off to the side and feel like you're doing the right thing. Is that you have to actually make good choices to be good and have an impact in the world. Because he thought, and we saw this with the one rose that he was kind of keeping in the corrupted green. But the idea that he has to, if he could keep one thing alive, that he would be doing something good. But ultimately, that's not true. He has to come out and make a difference. So he ends up with Jack Hawksmoor. There you go. I can forget his name. The guy who's one with the cities, right? The one who's like connected to cities. And this factory, the factory, has like sort of like manifested and sort of come alive again underneath Detroit. And obviously we expect this is connected to the rise of the new parliament, the parliament of gears, the industry, as opposed to the green and all that. Which is the stuff that me and Matt were just like fawning over last issue, and like the conceptually how great this is. That it's a man-made
right, that's kind of what this back half of this run has turned into, is the idea of man's effect on the planet and the ecosystem and how it's changing the balance of everything.
Yeah, and there's new forces coming in as well. We have this, and then we have obviously the Trinity one, which we'll talk about when we get to that page.
It's a little bit reminiscent for me of stuff that like American Gods.
I can see that.
You have like the new gods of the media coming in and kind of changing things.
Yeah, I kind of hinted this last issue. I tried to stay away from it too much because I didn't want to spoil it for Matt, but since he's not here, I got so much Twin Peaks Season 3 vibes last week. I was like, yes, give it to me. Swamp Thing meets Twin Peaks. I'm into it. So basically, this is corrupt, and it's feeding off the energy and everything from the city. And one of the things Swamp Thing tells him to do is to, like, maybe try and get the cities to, like, disconnect it from this, because it's basically because it doesn't have the resources to, like, build. Because all this thing cares about is producing. It's just keep going, keep enduring, and producing things. And that's why it's like started stealing, like, homeless people and making things out of them. And it's really horrific. Like, the body horror stuff here that it's kind of like implying that it's doing this, like,
there's like a box, like a metal box, whatever it is, that starts turning into stuff. That it's got the face coming in the eye. God, that's creepy as shit.
It's proper horrific. It's kind of Tetsuo the Iron Man, but it's actually mixing in, like, proper flesh as well. And it's like, it's just this awful, horrific stuff that, I love. So yeah, they try and shut off this factory, which involves Swamp Thing fighting this sort of half metal, half flesh kind of like avatar for industry. And they do seemingly succeed, and there's some great pages here, and just the fight when Jack gets involved and he's got, like, the lightning coming from his eyes, and, like, it's just really fun stuff that feels really moody and atmospheric. And then after they win, Swamp Thing kind of puts his hand down and sort of fills this building up again with green. Like, the green's supposed to reclaim derelict buildings, not industry, not, like, the stuff that was, like, put there and comes alive again. So he goes to the Parliament of Trees to talk to them, and we actually cut to the Trinity stuff here. So I guess we'll jump over to that before we talk about the rest of that.
Okay.
So this Trinity stuff
another
is
new avatar.
Not a new avatar. This is fascinating. Matt did some research last week and found that the name isn't just, like, this random thing they've picked. It comes from, like, what this stuff is called that was created when the nuclear bombs went off. But she's this glittery, kind of, like, sparkly being created out of, like, the bombs, and this guy finds her in the desert. He lives out here, and he thinks she's cold. So even though she looks different, he, like, is kind to her, gives her his coat, offers her food and drink. She doesn't need that, but she, plays along. But when she gets up the next day, this guy's dead. Because she is emitting...
Presumably intense radiation poisoning.
Yes. She is completely radioactive. Break out the dosimeter, because because this is potentially worse than Reactor 4. It's a Chernobyl reference for anyone who didn't get that. And Joe, this is the thing I love with these Swamp Thing books, is I love, like, sometimes it's the right occasion for the third person narration. Not the first person. You go the more omnipotent third person narrator who is talking about this as if it's, like, sort of written in stone kind of thing. And it works in other contexts. I like it with Superman. Like, it makes Superman feel like a godlike being in many ways if you have someone else talking about his impact rather than him speaking directly.
It makes her feel other.
Yeah. And I think it really works with these beings, these avatars, because it makes them feel like these elemental, ethereal things. But you get this horror.
This is so sad.
Yeah, because she doesn't seem like she's like inherently evil. And one of the things here that's interesting is she's walking down this, like, town that's nearby. Like, they immediately get scared and they take out their guns, they start shooting her. And there's a moment where she looks at this kid and she realizes that the kid had a toy in his hand, and then, like, all the adults have these guns in their hands, so it's like a toy or something that's designed to kill someone. And she has this kind of moment where she's like, do I have to decide what I'm going to be? Am I going to be something that's used for happiness or something that's going to be used for death and destruction? Like, there's a line where she clearly contemplates, like, which way do I go? What do I decide I'm going to be? So I don't know if this is going to be a thing where this avatar and what force she represents can, like, choose to be, better or worse, because she did see an act of human kindness from the man to begin with.
She has done nothing inherently evil. Like, killing the man was an accident. It wasn't. It was just a cause of who she is or what she is, not anything that she consciously did to hurt him. So she's definitely not villainous in any sense of the word right now.
Yeah, and she could be insanely villainous if she chooses to be, but she carries this man's dead body back and is immediately attacked. She's trying to, like,
she's trying to find them to get help.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of sweet. And then, there's this moment where even when she's been shot at, she's looking at the kid and she's weighing up this choice. So yeah, here's the lines here, just because I really like this couple of boxes of narration. Before her, in the man's hand, she sees a gun, and the child's a toy. A fine thing it's made is to be made, she thinks to herself. But the choice is hers now, she understands, to be a thing of joy or a thing of final consequence. So, and given that she comes, like, she's created from a nuclear bomb, effectively, or multiple nuclear bombs going off, that's like her inception, it's kind of interesting to think of her choosing to be not a weapon, or not destructive.
The choice she clearly has is, it's the analogy of, okay, she can be a nuclear bomb, or she could power a nuclear reactor and give the world clean energy, right? Presumably that's like in theory, the kind of the extremes of where she could go.
Yeah, what one is useful and will benefit everyone, the other one will just murder a lot of people. Yes. So, yeah. Love this. And do you know the funny thing is, that last issue was a 10 before that Trinity thing at the end even happened. That last issue was a 10, and then it gave us this last couple of pages where it was like, oh, this is super intriguing on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So, wonderful stuff. And then we go to the Parliament of Trees, and they're talking about this new Parliament of Gears, the industry rising. And, there's this great page of, what did they call him last issue? I forgot. You just read it. You should remember.
The pale...
Yeah. It was a combination of the Pale Wanderer and
it was because it was the guy who he took over, wasn't it?
Oh god, okay, doesn't matter now. But it was good stuff. But he's like sitting there at the bottom in kind of like a throne made of gears, effectively. And the Parliament are talking about how everything's changing, and they're effectively at war with this new Parliament. And it's revealed that they're actually turning to Jacob to fight it, his brother. And he walks in, he's like, no, he's better suited for this. And his brother calls him weak because he tried to save him, and it's like this idea that you're not right for this, and hits him away, and Levi becomes more human during this moment. And I'm not sure if it's implying here that he's actually lost.
It is, yes, 100%.
You think it's 100% doing that? But he turns back into human as Jacob. He keeps to kind of the horns, but becomes more Swamp Thing-esque as he walks away. And it's actually this the one member of the Parliament who looks like a young girl, but is a member of the Parliament, says, no, when we were picking a new avatar, like, it was me that wanted you, and you have an ally in me still, and, when you turn to me, I'll still be here for you. I don't have as much power as the Parliament combined. I can't, give you everything, but... So it's this idea that there is someone hoping for the better, and the reason why she picked him was because she remembered them swinging from the tree as kids, and she used to wish that it was her branches that were swinging from. It's actually kind of this oddly sweet thing. I don't know. I don't remember a time when the Parliaments had individual personalities, and there's one that's been more sympathetic. I don't know if I remember an occasion like that before.
I have either.
But that's interesting. So basically, it's this hope that eventually they will turn to Levi again. That they need Levi's compassion rather than a war. And I think the idea that this is where maybe the Trinity stuff comes in, is they're going to need someone to appeal to her to make the right choice, as opposed to just fight her.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe...
But they're reacting out of fear right now and just in panic stations and quick. Let's get our own weapons ready.
Yeah. And I don't think they even necessarily know about... Maybe they do know about Trinity, but they don't talk about Trinity here. They just talk about the gears, that side of things. Yeah. So I think maybe that's why they're going to have to turn back to him. But... I think he still has a connection to the green, though, because I think that's what makes the ending still work. Because
I think he does, just through this one member of the Parliament, though. He's not an avatar anymore. He is not a Swamp Thing. But maybe he has just a touch.
Yeah, I think he's still connected to it, and he can still sense things, because when he comes home and Jesse's like, hey, someone's here to see you, and it's Hal Jordan, and he's like, hey, we've got a situation, and the final page is them out, and there's these big plant-like beings floating through space, and he says they're here to fight a war. So he can still sense, the purpose of these plants. So there's still a connection to the green of some sorts. So that's interesting. And it makes me wonder if the green are actually enlisting alien plant life to come and help. That's kind of the implication I got here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't know how much it is he is actually sensing this, and how much is just he knows the plan from before, just before he was kind of cut off and stopped being in the Avatar. Is this is the Green's army.
Yeah, I thought it was sensitive, but I mean you could argue either way, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm sure it'll be clear next issue.
Yeah,
but it could go either way.
Because I think him having that one member of the Parliament still like on his side means that he will still, sense the Green in some way.
Yeah, I think it. Like, I like the last page.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could almost cut it and just end on the Hal Jordan page and just end there, and it still works.
Yeah,
like, I've got a situation in my hands, and we just explain this, alien plant war starting next time. Like, you don't need that right now.
Yeah. Maybe it's just like a sort of like page count thing where they realized, we have to go one page further. Yeah. Because that would work as a cliffhanger, just Hal being there in that full page spread saying, I need your help.
It feels like a final page, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a minor quibble in the grand scheme of things, though.
Yeah.
I really can't emphasize enough how much I love the idea of the industry rising as one of the new powers and Trinity's story so far. Like, all of that stuff. Like, I think the mythology that he's adding to Swamp Thing here is fantastic. Like, and
yeah.
I said this last issue, but like it really does feel like these last 6 issues are going to be the best thing of the whole run, and I'm so thankful that we're getting them.
And that says a lot, given that the first 10 were all pretty excellent.
I mean, it's one big story, and it all comes to, it's all part of one thing, but ultimately, all my favorite stuff, I think, is actually coming in this last chunk. Based on these last few issues. So
I mean, last issue before this was a 10, and the one before that was like a 9.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean,
and
clearly this is up there.
Yeah, and the art is phenomenal. I think the stuff in the Trinity section, especially, because obviously there's a lot of fun, grotesque stuff when they're fighting the Avatar, the Industry, or the Guardian, whatever it is that they're fighting, this mesh of like flesh and metal. But the Trinity stuff is, I think, where you get all this like sort of subtle emotion of like this being contemplating the kindness that's been shown to her, the way this man's looking at her, which is just of like, oh, I need to help her. Like, there's so much like sort of communicated in the art and the emotions of like just what the characters are thinking and how they're reacting to each other, and the narration is there, but the narration isn't necessarily overly like propping up what the art's doing. It's kind of like telling its own side of it in a way. So the art is really strong here across the board in that sense, and because we do get this very different, and she's a very different character. Even though obviously there's a potential for her to be very horrific in what she's doing to people with the radiation, she's a very pretty thing to look at in terms of like all the sparkly colors, and it's very it's like a walking Northern Lights in some ways kind of thing. Whereas obviously all the stuff with the industry and the factory is, Tetsuo the Iron Man meets like David Cronenberg meets other stuff. Like it's
so great.
It's wonderful. So,
and I just checked the name. Pilgrim was what we were looking for.
Pilgrim?
Pilgrim, yeah.
Pilgrim. There you go.
Yeah, just to say it, but it's a little bit different, obviously, because Wanderer is, by design, it's like, okay, it's just out there doing its thing, but Pilgrim has a purpose.
Oh yeah, that's the
message to spread.
That's partly why it's such a good name, is because it's obviously the man's name, but it's like got a double meaning to replace Wanderer. So, but yeah, no, it's a wonderful issue. What are you giving it?
I'm gonna give it like a 9.5. I'm basically just knocking like half a point off for that like last page where I'm like, I didn't need that last page here. I would have preferred the ending just to end on Hal.
Yeah, it's hard to. I'm just going to go with a straight 9, basically for the same reason. I just don't want to overblow the ratings a bit. I'm keeping restrained and just going with a straight 9. But I gave the last one a 10, so like, we're in like an all-time Swamp Thing story at this point, and
oh, for sure,
like I could not really be happier.
It's going to be remembered as such.
Yeah. So this will be something we're propping up. And awards at the end of the year, and next time we hit a milestone and we're doing what's the best of everything since we started the show, this is going to be comfortably in contention for high up on that list. So
it probably would have been even from just the first 10 issues, but now with this, it's easily.
Yeah. So There you go. That's Swamp Thing issue 13. Task Force Z issue 8. Matthew Rosenberg writing with Jackson Herbert on the art. This is an interesting issue because the last issue ended with like the realization we need more of the Lazarus resin, and the only sample we know of is the one that Jason gave Batman, so they're going to have to rob Batman. So this issue is Two-Face and like Solemn Grundy and the scientist chick dressed up as one of the other villains to try and just create a distraction that will lure out Batman so that Jason can go to the new Batcave and steal it. But the majority of the issue is actually Jason with first Babs, who's there, and he thinks he's tricking her, but like she knows what he's doing. And then Dick's there to confront him, and then Tim shows up, and then Cass shows up. And I will say that Cassie's entrance is hilarious because he's taking on Dick and Tim, and he's kind of like being cocky. He's like, "You think I'm scared of you two?" And then like Cass shows up in the next panel and just says hello, and he just goes shit. The implication being that he's actually scared of Cass, and it plays a really fun moment. It's kind of a like I mostly enjoyed the issue, but it's got a bit of a weird vibe to it because I don't know if I like the idea that Jason's holding his own against Dick, Cass, and Tim at the same time, and effectively outsmarts them a little bit by the end of the issue by getting away, and they're kind of frustrated by it at the end, and it plays as this joke moment. But maybe it's just my inherent disliking of Jason Todd compared to the others, but I don't like him being able to take on like the rest of them and win and kind of like be able to gloat about it. I don't know. It felt a little bit, even though I'm growing to like him more because he's getting some decent stories recently and like people are writing him better as kind of the outlaw bat. It did feel a bit annoying. Like I don't mind him like 1-on-1 with Dick, fine. Like he can win the fight if you want. But you know, he breaks Tim's nose, which is, you know, referenced a lot, and it's kind of funny because he keeps saying, "You broke my nose, dude." But at the same time, like he's also taking on Cass and kind of like winning, and he claims he was holding back as well by the end. I don't know. It's a little bit of like, look at how great Jason is that he's doing all this against everyone else kind of thing. Maybe a little bit too much in that side of things for me. So the art here, Jackson Herbert, is doing a good job of sort of mimicking, because it was like Barrows for the first however many issues. I don't know if he's just gone now permanently, but I mean the art's fine. It is actually fairly consistent with what was there before. It's sticking to the same tone by and large. It is a little cleaner, I would say, but it's not too bad. Some more fun stuff, like mad scientist stuff with a Bloom, where he's doing experiments on Man-Bat. He's actually got Man-Bat right now with a human head but a Man-Bat body, because he's experimenting on him and he's doing lots of crazy shit. And there's a joke here that he's actually got 5 different experiments on him, but then he whispers to this guy who's showing up and he's like, "No, it's actually 6. He doesn't know about the parasite." Just some dark humor, which is kind of the thing that's been the main, honestly, kind of the main appeal of this book in a lot of ways, is the dark humor of like everything Bloom's been doing and all the rest of what's going on. All the Bat Family fighting stuff is entertaining at points. Like I say, Cassie's entrance was really funny. The jokes about Tim's nose being broken is also kind of funny, but you know, him outsmarting the entire team. I mean, I don't mind the outsmarting part too much, because the idea that he's passed what he stole to like what looked like just like a random woman on the street, but is actually like an ally is fine. Like that's how he gets the stuff. The idea that he's going to like get beat by the rest of the Bat Family, but he snuck out the thing in time is totally fine. But he kind of does a little too well against the rest of the team, and I just wasn't necessarily feeling like, it felt like you were kind of downplaying how great like 3 of your other characters are by having Jason go over on them. So maybe a little bit of that. But are significantly medium places. Task Force Z have successfully gotten the resin, and Jason kind of Batman's out the scene because they're fighting like a train station by the end of the issue, and he like sort of like gets on a speeding train seemingly in the background, and the last line is Dick saying, "You got to be kidding me." So it's mostly played for laughs, so you know it's fine, but it was making Jason feel a little bit like Super Jason this issue.
I had a guy at work this week tell me that Jason was his favorite DC character, and I told him we can't be friends anymore.
You sick scum! How dare you?
Yeah, I was like, what's wrong with you? He's like, it's cool. I'm like, I don't like you anymore.
I mean, does he also like anime? I'm just building a picture here.
He does like anime. But I like anime, so that's fine.
No, it's not fine. This is like the horrible concoction of a person that you're describing
There's
here.
lots of great anime.
No, there isn't.
I mean, yes, there is.
No, there isn't. Anime fans are wrong.
Our audience will disagree with you on this one.
Like, I have to accept just how much of our audience probably likes at least some anime.
Yeah.
I'm a little disgusted by it, but you know what? I'll accept it. I'll put up with it. But just know that deep down, I'm a little disgusted.
It's okay. You could be disgusted about irrational fears.
Praising trash like Akira. Anyway.
It was great.
Convoluted trash. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, Task Force Z, issue 8. Fine enough issue. I'm actually just ashamed that I don't get to hear what Matt's thoughts on this were, because I'm wondering if he felt the same way I did about Jason being a bit too good at everything. But, you know, we'll see. But
just tweet him and find out.
I will give this... I'll probably still give it like a 7 though, because it's still like a perfectly crafted issue. And there's the funny moments. The humour that's been there that I've enjoyed and what's made this book kind of fun to read is still there. Both in the interactions with the main characters and also the Bloom stuff, just him being like a crazy mad scientist who's completely off his rocker. Like, yeah. Fun enough stuff. So, that's cool. Alright. DC versus Vampires Hunters, issue 1. So this is a one-shot, which actually does... Like, I thought it might be set further ahead, or it might be more...
It's a little bit ahead, but not much.
But it kind of feels like... I mean, maybe the next issue of the main series won't necessarily be after this, but it does kind of feel like this is set after a lot of the big revelations that happened just in the main book. So
I am shocked I managed to go... Because I only read issue 6 just before this. I am shocked I managed to go all that time without spoiling it.
That's quite impressive.
I had no idea.
And it was a really well done issue, I thought. I mean...
that was great, yeah.
Matt was conflicted. He kind of hated it, but he liked it, but he hated it.
Did he hate it because he doesn't like the idea of Dick being like...
The villain, yeah. I don't know. I guess... refer to our previous discussion, because I don't remember it that well, but... it was... I really like that issue. This issue is kind of interesting, because it does kind of feel like this kid could just be the next main issue, and because if this is considered a side one shot, then what's the rest of the main story? Like, I feel like the next main book's just going to pick up kind of after this, or...
Yeah, but unless we're switching perspectives entirely, we're actually like following vampires in the main book for the next...
maybe, yeah. Or we're following other characters who are surviving, because maybe that was the end of the Bat side of the story, so this was kind of like a sort of follow-up to that, and then the main book's going to like start veering into just more Green Arrow with doing other stuff with them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But... so this is in a world where vampires have kind of taken over, and the interesting part is that Damien is a vampire and seemingly does kill Martian Manhunter at the start, but it turns out that he's actually working with Martian Manhunter and the other humans, even though he is a vampire, and he's drinking pig's blood. What other vampire drinks pig's blood because they're actually a good vampire?
None, ever.
No, there's at least one that springs to mind.
It's never happened in the history of vampire fiction.
Oh, is it not? No. Not the main first love interest in the hit television show. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Angel?
Never happened.
No, Angel, the vampire with a soul.
No.
So I immediately, of course, when they revealed this, that Damien's actually a bit of a double agent and he's still working with the humans, even though he's a vampire, it was like, okay, so why though? Like, why is he still good? Like... It's interesting because Damien, of course, has got the attitude and he's a little shithead, so it's kind of interesting that he's the only vampire who's not evil.
And it kind of answers that over the issue, though.
It does to an extent, yeah. It's still a little open because it kind of sounds like it's just because he had the good influence of Alfred to kind of keep him being good.
Hey, Alfred is that good. We know this.
It is. I mean, I do feel that there should be a little more to it, just because I feel like, wait, so you can just like be good if a vampire has a good influence, they'll still be good because.
Only it seems like maybe only like if it's just after they've turned though.
Yeah, because it's not like all the other characters who have turned immediately evil didn't have like lots of good influence before that point.
Yeah, I assume this is to do with being a good influence and knowing they're a vampire and like
Mm.
actively working against that, as opposed to just the general being good people that most of our heroes are.
But there is an irony to Damien being the one who this is, right? Like, because he is the one who is aggressively the least like heroic in the traditional sense. I mean, he's still good, but he's got the attitude. He's sort of like maybe fought. Maybe you could argue that his past of like having to fight the conditioning that Talia and Raz put into him, where they wanted him to be a killer, and he had to like actively fight that once he met Bruce. You could sort of maybe argue that sort of set him up to like be able to fight this in a weird way.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's ideas there. The whole issue is then effective about them sneaking in. The idea that Dick, who's the ruler of the vampires, will only speak to someone if they've got like something good to show him, like someone who he wants to be captured. So he brings them what looks like to be Alfred, but it's actually Martian Manhunter, of course, impersonating Alfred. Dick has already predicted and knows that Damien's working with the good guys, but he goes through a bit of a charade. We get Vampire Grodd, Zaz, and Wonder Girl showing up here.
I love the panel where they're all just flying off the side of the building.
Yeah.
And Dick's just at the top, just in his brooding vampire black cape. He's definitely watched the Underworld movies one too many times.
I do like the subtle Nightwing logo on the back that you see later.
That was nice.
Nice little touch. But there is this interesting thing here where Dick does let them go at the end. He accepts that they'll leave and they'll never see him again. And just to actually make a genuine comparison, I do think the way the vampires dust is very Buffy-esque, just in the way they kind of like explode into dust and you see the skeleton inside. Yeah, it's very similar kind of effect.
I actually loved the layout of those 2 pages as Damien's running. So he's running through the hallway, going through all the vampires, and then you have the vertical split of him dropping down all the floors.
I especially like that first page with the hallway with him like dusting the vampires as he's running like across.
Yeah, I really like that page as well. But I like the touch on the second page of just showing us what floor he's on by just seeing the numbers on the doors behind him as he flies through, and it still works down in a diagonal motion. It's such a good flow. Yeah,
that's good stuff. So yeah, he's Black Mask is a vampire. He stakes him as well, so he's gone. And then ultimately, Damien has to protect Alfred, and he gets burned severely.
UV light in the flames from fire.
Yeah. And so it looks like Jason Voorhees actually when he gets all burned, like young Jason Voorhees.
I can see it.
That's what it looks like. But Alfred's like, bite me. You need strength. Bite me to make yourself better. And he does. He's reluctant, but he does. So we get this like moment where Alfred comes face to face with Dick, with the evil vampire Dick Grayson. So, and he says, Damien, he was able to fight it because he had Alfred. And he's like, no, I want you to make sure you take care of him, and you can have a choice here to leave, but that's it. He has hope that one day humans and vampires can live in some kind of harmony. And I guess the motivation why vampires want that in some extent is that humans need to still exist for food. Like they need humans to exist. So
yeah, it's always a big problem in a lot of vampire world domination stories that gets overlooked. You do have some of them that address it, but it is definitely overlooked in a lot of them. Yeah.
And this does seem, I mean, I don't know if humane is the right word, but so there's a story in season 3 of Buffy where they go to like an alternate world where vampires have taken over, and their tactic for like dealing with it is they actually breed humans and they want to like just treat them like cattle, where they actually just try to like turn it into like almost like a winery.
The Matrix approach.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Where they've just got like a thing where they're just like they've got human blood on tap because they're starting to farm humans effectively. So the interesting thing. I don't really, you're right. I'm making genuine comparisons here for the sake of conversation.
I don't know if you are.
Right, I had my 2 fun ones that were there to annoy you, and for the cheap pop, for the audience who loves the hit television show references.
There's no audience that loves this.
They do. We got a complaint on Twitter because I brought up Buffy a few weeks ago and didn't say hit television show. So,
actually.
We did, yes. Which I apologize profusely for. Right, that's
Do you know how you can solve that?
No, that's not an option. I know what
You know exactly what I was
I
going
know what you're
to
gonna say, but it's not an option.
I think just never mention it again is a perfectly safe option.
Yeah. So no, it's good. So it's basically Dick's like, you can kill me, but that will not end well, and it'll just cause chaos. But if I let you walk out, you'll never get another chance to kill me. But you get to keep Damien alive and look after him, and hopefully we have a better future. So there is this thing that there is like this idea that Dick still wants some good things, but he is still a vampire, and so it adds a bit of some layers to this like dynamic between him and his old family that are still alive in some form.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. I'm digging it.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, you could debate that the reason this is called something different and not in issue numbers because it's a different artist, but at the same time,
we had co-artists on the last couple.
We did have co-artists in the last issues, and also I assume that this is separate in the sense that this was not, because the original story was like by Tyne and then Rosenberg came in to finish it, right?
Yes. Tyne gave it the outline of the ideas.
So I have to assume that this one shot and then this miniseries that's going to be run alongside the second half of it they're all new sort of add-ons that Rosenberg's come up with. So
yeah, because this doesn't have Tynan's name attached to it in any capacity. No. So this is entirely Rosenberg's brainchild of what if we did this.
Which is cool because he's fleshing it out. He's adding more stuff to it that makes some sense, and I would argue that this relationship that he set up here between Vampire Damien, who's being good, Alfred, and Vampire Dick, the Overlord, is added some dynamics here that I think make this all a bit richer, which is good. So yeah. So win-win and all those things, and the arts is actually very good. So I wasn't missing Schmidt, even though Schmidt's great.
No, it's very different, but because it's not trying to be the same thing, I didn't feel like it was, this is just not Schmidt. I wasn't getting that feeling because it was, I mean, it helps that, okay, it's in a separate one-shot book, so it doesn't feel like it's connected anyway, but also that it's just good enough on its own right.
Yeah, little Angel Damien's action sequence of like going down the building, dusting vampires was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. What are you giving DC versus Vampires Hunters issue 1?
I'll probably give it an 8. I'm digging it. I'm glad we got more of these kind of, I don't want to say Elseworlds, but just out of continuity stories that we're getting recently.
I'd call it an Elseworld. I mean, it's not that banner, but like it is. That's what it is, really.
Essentially, yeah.
I'll give it 8.5. A lot of fun. Added some layers to this storytelling, and I love how it's playing with these characters and who they are in this context. So, yeah, cool stuff. All right. Batman Fortress issue 1, Gary Whitta writing with Darick Robertson on the art, and you didn't read this because you had so much to catch up on that you had to...
I did plan on reading it, but
yeah,
I just got caught up with all the extra books, and us recording a day earlier than usual just meant it wasn't feasible to hit in, unless you wanted to wait another 15 minutes for us to start, which I'm assuming you didn't.
The basic gist of this is that there's a blackout. It's already started, right? So the issue starts and it's just, Gotham's already in darkness, and it starts off by introducing the context with some thieves who are breaking into Wayne Manor. It's like, hey, all of his security is going to be down. Let's go in and steal some shit. And of course, Alfred and Bruce take care of them. It's actually more Alfred than Bruce, to be honest. Alfred, takes one of them down. And it's like, okay, all right, okay. And then from there, it's like, okay, this isn't just Gotham. The entire world is blacking out, right? All the major cities are going down. Something's doing this to the planet. And Bruce is going to go and investigate it. And, the issue is like him going to see Gordon, who's got a bunch of batteries rigged up to the bat signal so they could turn the bat signal on. A bunch of car batteries, that is. So, some fun premise stuff here. I will say this, though. I kind of hated this issue more as it went on. And it comes down to a couple of key, somewhat related things in the dialogue and the narration. So, first thing, the easiest one to talk about is the very awkward pop culture references that started to really annoy me. There's one early on that's not too bad, but it felt a bit forced where, like, Gordon says he doesn't say The Purge, but basically that's what he's talking about. He says, it's a bit like that movie where all crime is legal for one night. And then Batman turns around and says, wait, that's a movie? And he's like, yeah, you don't get out much with that cape, do you? And I'm like, oh, that felt really awkward and clunky. And it wasn't like things felt too off before that, but that just really stuck out as feeling So I didn't like that. But then it got worse later. So because Arkham's also lost power, like everyone's out. So there's like a couple of quick things that happen. There's a scene where Joker's like kidnapped like a school bus, so he's riding the school bus, and that's fine, whatever. It's not a Joker story. He's just here for like one scene of like there's chaos happening because all the Arkham villains are out. But he turns round, and I actually didn't mind him making the reference itself because he turns round and says, "School's out forever," and I was like, "Oh, you know what? Okay, that's a reference, but I'll buy Joker making that reference. It kind of fits in context that he's referencing that song." But then like it keeps going. Like he says, "Wait, no Alice Cooper fans here? Ah, kids today and their music taste or something to that effect." And I'm like, "What? No, you've overdone it now. Like you're actually pointing out that Joker cares about Alice Cooper and that he's mad that the kids don't like Alice Cooper. It's too like Joker doesn't care about music. Like this is too humanizing."
I don't know. Actually, I'm not saying that he cares, but the way you've just described that, it sounds a lot like Hamill's Joker. You know, it is where he would say a joke and then be like, "Oh, really? Come on!" You know, he'd kind of be disappointed that people aren't laughing along with him afterwards.
Admittedly, maybe it's because they'd already dropped a pop culture reference or two. That at this point, I was really like noticing this.
Yeah, maybe it's the pop culture angle to it that's bothering you. But the idea of Joker, again, it's not that he's caring that they don't know Alice Cooper. It's more that they're not laughing along with him. That's very much kind of straight out of Hamill's Joker stuff.
Yeah. So the pop culture references were bugging me. And there's some other things as well. Like at one point, there's like some looting going on, and they've got a box that says UHD TV on it, which is fine. But then Batman references the fact that one of the things people want in life is bigger TVs and stuff. And I was like, it felt like the book really wants to try and reference a lot of things and just reference like the real world or reference pop culture. There's a lot of that going on. And then the other thing, and this bugged me even more perhaps, is Batman's characterization feeling a little off, and also, well, maybe feeling off is a bit not the right way of saying this on. It's more that Whitta seems to want to like include a lot of like stuff that relates to who Batman is, but he's like including too much of it in one issue. So there's like a moment where the Joker, for example, like after he's like saved the kids from the school bus, and Joker's like, you know, falling off the side of the bridge, and Batman obviously eventually like fires his grapple down and like, you know, leaves Joker dangling because he's not going to let him die. But there's a whole internal monologue where the narration where Batman's saying, you know, I know Joker can't swim because I can, you know, I still see him in that vat of you know, chemicals, you know, that night he was created, and I still wonder if I should have let him drown. And just before like he fires the grapple, he says, "One day, clown, but not today." So characterization's a bit off there because like I don't know, I'm kind of over like I don't mind necessarily Batman like being tempted early in his career, and it definitely makes it feel like it's an early-ish Batman setting because he's having these thoughts. But there's even like a moment where there's like some criminals that have killed a couple in Crime Alley, and Batman comes in, takes care of them, and he says, "I don't usually come to this part of the city. The memories are too real, like, you know, the and things like that." I'm just like, why is there so much of this in this? Like so much of like Batman talking about why he kills or doesn't kill people, or well, not that he does or doesn't, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't kill people. Batman talking about his, you know, internal debate of just killing the Joker as if it's like an ever-present thing. When he goes past the people looting, he's talking about why I'm not going to like save like these big companies and they've got insurance. This is not why I dress up as a bat. And then he saves someone who's getting attacked. He's like, this is why I dress up like a bat. Like I feel like he's hitting, like it's like he's one. It feels the need. It's almost like it's the first Batman movie that's not got an origin. So he's intentionally putting in all these little things to try and like explain who Batman is as he's going.
Everyone knows who Batman is,
and address like all of like the internal things and it really started to annoy me. The more it happened, the more I was like, why are all these little things in here? Like, I know who Batman is. You don't have to go through all of this.
Yeah, I wonder if that's only like going to be a problem in the first issue.
Maybe
like he's got that all out of the system now, so we can just relax. Maybe not.
I don't know. Like, he stops Penguin at one point. That's right before the Joker scene. Um, because one of the things early on that he says is like to Alfred is like, what about the Boy Scout? Have we heard from him? And I was like, okay, that makes me feel like early days, right? And he calls him Clark later, so it's whatever. And it's like, okay, so there's some maybe alien ship or something that's done this to the world, and it's probably hostile. But this is definitely a very angry Batman, because at the end, when there's like, okay, there's something up above in the atmosphere that's causing this blackout, and only one satellite that's a little bit further from Earth is actually still operating, or at least one of Wayne's satellites, that is. He says, well, like we can't wait for Clark to show up if he's not answering. It's kind of weird. If he contacted, because he says if he contacted the rest of the league, and it's like, yeah, they're waiting at the headquarters, so presumably that's where we're going to start issue 2. But he says, Alfred asks, are we declaring war? And Bruce says, they declared war when they shut down our planet. Now we hit back hard, and that's what the issue ends on. And well, I don't get me wrong. I think it's reasonable to suspect that this is hostile and that this is like maybe a preemptive thing before something else. I get why he's thinking that. I don't know. Something just felt a little too one note and aggressive, I guess, from Batman. So some of it's just like it feels like it's trying to reiterate every internal like thing Batman had to go through in his early days, all sort of hitting in the narration, mixed with a couple of times of feeling a little bit off character because of that. And then add in the awkward pop culture references. By the end, I was having a lot of problems with dialogue and narration. I think the premise is fine, and there's some good art from Robertson, I think, sprinkled in here for sure. It's like every bit of every page, like there's definitely some facial expressions that look a bit weird to me, or Bruce especially towards the end. There's like one page where he's looking down at the computer monitors, and I think his face looks a bit odd. But by and large, when he's in the cowl, the silhouette of the Batman looks really good, and stuff like the school bus going off over the side of the bridge looks really nice and detailed, and pops quite nicely. So there's a lot of nice art in here as well. But I have to say, I really started to get annoyed by a lot of things in the book, and by the end, it left me feeling very mixed, I would say.
That's a shame.
So, my disappointment of you not reading this is to see if this is just me or if you were going to feel the same things.
I suspect I would agree with a lot of those problems that you've pointed out. Things like the over, I'm pretty annoyed by a lot of over narration in a lot of comics anyway. I complain about that a lot, and especially with it being like recurring problems, like the ones you're referring to. Like it's hitting the same beats kind of repeatedly. Yeah, I suspect I would probably be annoyed by those as well.
Yeah, and there's another one when he's leaving Garden. Like just as he's leaving, there's like a page of he's jumping off the roof, and like, and again implying it's an early days backstory because he asked Jim if he's okay, and he says, yeah, I'm fine, because he talks about popping pills for his blood pressure, and he's like, you're the only person that's asked me that, and Batman says, what are friends for? And Gordon goes, is that what we are? And as Batman jumps off the roof, he goes, well, as close as it gets when one of us is wearing a mask. And I'm like, that was really cheesy. I wasn't really feeling that.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's the other thing. There's like a reference to, not necessarily a direct, like, this is in the same universe kind of thing, but there's kind of a reference to Batman Begins here. Because Gordon says thanks, and Batman says, I told you never had to tell me that, or say that to me. I was like, that's a Begins reference. That's I never got a chance to thank you. You'll never have to. And then it's referenced in Dark Knight when he says, yes, I do.
Yeah.
But and I
think it's more just a reference than anything. Yeah.
But it was right after the Purge thing, so it was like, I don't know. It felt like there was too many things being referenced constantly. I don't know.
That's fair. And for me, I'm not a huge Robertson fan either. Like, I can stand it, but I don't usually like his art very much. It borders on dislike at times.
I think his regular faces are a little bit wonky at times. I do think that when it's in the cowl, when he's doing sort of action, it's all right, even good.
He does. He's great drawing like big beefcake figures, right? That's kind of what his strength is, and it's fine, but it's not really an art style that appeals to me. And it's his faces in general. But from what I remember, he has a weird thing with mouths. They always look really small on the face.
Yeah, there's definitely some Bruce mouth in this where it feels like it's not wide enough. It feels like he's got like his little rat mouth.
Yeah, he has that in a lot of his stuff where it always feels like the facial features are all squashed in. They're too small for the face that they're actually on.
So yeah, I'm going to probably maybe harsh, but I'm going to lump this with a 5.5.
It does sound quite harsh actually, but
I was really annoyed by the end of the issue. Like it was like the first time I was like, I didn't like that, but whatever, moving on, no big deal. It's because the writing seemed fine before that for the first few pages, and then
it just kept coming back. It just often enough to keep reminding you that it's still being annoying.
It got to the point where every couple of pages it was doing something that took me out of it and annoyed me. So by the end, I was like, even though I'm fine with the premise and I like generally what the story's doing, I actually am kind of annoyed by the writing, which is a shame. But it is what it is. So I don't know if Matt read this yet. I'll be curious to ask him about it next week and see if he give it a try and what he thought of it. But
yeah, if he decided to, because he didn't read One Dark Night, did he?
Oh, he went back and read that. He read the. He caught
did he? Okay.
With the second issue, yeah, because I'd said it was good.
He didn't at the time. I know that.
Yeah. But yeah, there you go. That's Batman Fortress. So Patreon book time every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. For one of the higher tiers, you can make myself or Connor read a book. Connor's going to do one this week. He's reading a new book that came out this week because he's made to, and that is Harley Quinn issue 15. So take it away.
Yeah, Stephanie Phillips still writing. Yeah, Riley Rosmo still on art. This is the continuation of the Batwoman Harley team up. And it's not great. I will say it's not as horrendously bad as a lot of the other issues have been. I think it's a lot more straightforward than a lot of issues have been. There's no jumping around timelines. It mostly follows really linearly, just straight through with the two characters. There's a little bit at the start with some detectives and a little bit at the end with Kevin. But for the most part, it just follows straight through with the two of them. And basically, they are trying to find evidence to prove that Harley didn't commit all the murders because she can't have committed the murders. And Batwoman knows that. That's why she's broke her out of Blackgate in the first place, because she thinks if she's in Blackgate, she's just going to get killed because she's a target. She has no faith in Harley to defend herself, apparently. So they break into like the police station and like looking at the evidence box, and the detective, one of the detectives finds them, and there's a bit of a fight, and then up shows the new vigilante that is framing Harley, guilty, the one with the guilty on the mask. I can never remember the name. I don't even know if they've given her an official name yet. But there's a big fight scene. It's a very messy fight because Rosmo. It goes on for about 6 pages, which is way too long for a fight between 3 people in one room, and it ends with a massive explosion. Like they've won. They've got her cornered, and she just pulls a detonator out and blows them all up and escapes. But she's been shot a few times. She's like beaten up. And this is where it does the thing where it plays it like a reveal. Like she gets back to to Kevin's house, or home, in the apartment, and it's in the bathroom, and she pulls off the mask, and it's like, it's me, it's Sam. And it's like that. It's a big final page reveal. And I thought it was really weird because they really heavily implied it last issue that it was her, so we kind of knew this as an audience. So this reveal is more for Sam's sake. Not Sam, for Kevin's sake, finding out that it's Sam. But that seems weird to treat that as a big final page kind of cliffhanger as the reveal there, because we know that. Verdict. That's her name. It's an awful name. That's why I don't remember it ever. But it says next time's going to be her origin, which, that's just what I need. The only upside to that is that sounds like a fill-in issue.
That's a different art.
That sounds like it's not going to be a Riley Rosmo issue, and I could be wrong. I haven't looked ahead, but it does. Those sorts of issues in the middle of an arc do tend to be fill-in artists a lot of the time. So I can live in hope. But yeah, this book is so rough, and it's not just the art anymore. Like the writing is kind of all over the place. This issue, like I say, it's fairly linear compared to a lot of the issues which are jumping all over the place. There's not a lot of pop culture referencing this time. Again, unlike a lot of the issues, Harley does have a weird fixation on bringing a monkey on a heist that just wasn't funny the first time, and then it comes up like 5 times over the issue, and it just got annoying by the end. Like, why are you so fixated on this one joke that's not funny? It's not getting any funnier. But yeah, I don't know. It's like a 4. Better than some of the issues.
What a rain endorsement. But there you go. That'll take us on to the part of the show where we pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and top 5 books. So we'll start with favourite panel / moment. Connor, what do you have?
I'm not ready. I forgot to look.
Oh my god. Just easy.
I forgot to look in advance. Just go.
I've not looked at it. I mean, I've looked at the covers because I always look at those while you're doing a Patreon book. That's what I do. Okay, I think for me, I mean, it's probably from Swamp Thing. I mean, although that said, though, the vampires getting dusted in the hallway fight, as it were, is a really cool little moment. But I think in Swamp Thing, I'm going to go with probably something with Trinity. Probably the like her waking up and seeing the guy dead from radiation poisoning. I'll go with that.
That's a good choice.
Okay, what you got?
Do you know what? I might actually go with Action Comics.
Action Comics is probably the next logical choice as well.
Just for the panel. I think just that first page, the first big panel, not the little one with just the crest, but the first major panel, where it's, you know, seeing Superman in the updated outfit, kind of just being like, it really set the tone of, okay, this is why we're in the next stage of the story here now. It's more color. I like the design, the art. It just like, it really set me up for the issue and the story going forward. And I was like, yeah, okay, I really like that image.
Yeah, okay. All right. Cover of the week. What you got?
Oh, there's some good covers this week. There is.
Yeah, I've got 3 that I've narrowed it down to. Well, I've picked what one is, but I've got 2 to mention as well.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out to actually a couple of the Harley Quinn variants are surprisingly nice. Pretty much all of those.
I think they sell very well, so they get a lot of good variants.
they do, and I know, you know, whatever, but I think ultimately I'm going to go with the Swamp Thing variant, the Anand RK one, which is kind of the deconstruction. It's just incredible.
Yeah. I think I'll give a shout out to the Deathstroke Inc. cover. It's the Chew one. It's a Rose. You know, it's just a nice.
It's pretty nice. Yeah.
Cover of her. Also shout out the Gist cover of Swamp Thing. It's like the painted Swamp Thing. Is the gears with the furnace.
I do like that one as well. Yeah,
very pretty.
I mean, all 3 Swamp Thing covers are great.
Yeah. The one I'm going to pick though is actually one of the detective variants. It's the McDermott one. It's just it's the question mark spray painted on Batman's like chest, but it's just really simple. But it's got a nice texture and it's just a simple design that I just think looks really good. So
that's not bad.
I'm gonna go with that. There you go. So best art of the week. What are you picking?
Oh, it's probably Swamp Thing. I think Action would have been in with a chance, but I think just the Conrad stuff, it isn't bad by any means, but I think it is noticeably different, and just lowers it just a touch that I'm going to push it towards Swamp Thing instead.
That is fair. I am also going with Swamp Thing. I want to give a shout out to Vampires Hunters, though, because Googe has been hit and miss with me in the past, and I want to commend that there's great layouts in that issue, and it didn't really have the problems of the big heads that I have associated with him in the past when he's done like Flash issues and stuff. So I want to give him just a bit of a shout out for an issue that I thought, oh, that's better than what I would expect from Googe, so thumbs up, I guess. But yeah, I'm also picking Swamp Thing because it is beautiful start to finish, all makes sense, nice variety in it as well, very moody, all good stuff. All right, top 5 books, on you go.
Well, it's Swamp Thing, surprising no one, I think. Then Action, then DC Vampires. After that, probably probably Robin, then Detective Comics, I think.
Okay. My number one's also the Swamp Thing. Number two is I mean the top three is probably the same. So Action is number two, and then number three is Vampire Hunters. Then number four though, I'd maybe I'd probably say I'll say Robin, then I'll put Detective at number five. Wait, is that the exact same? Is that the exact same five as yours?
That's the exact same.
Well, there you go. It's the exact same then. What do you want?
I wanted you to change up your order just to not be the same as me.
No. Like, I'm not going to... Knowing I'm right means I'm right. I'm not going to change it just to be different to you.
You usually do.
I do not. I have integrity. Thank you very much. Well, there you go. Those are picks of the week. I will now tell you what is coming next week from DC Comics. It is a week 5, so it's a bit of an oddball. Not too much. It's a bit of an oddball week with annuals and specials. We have Batman 2022 annual, which I might actually not read because it's a Ghostmaker and Batman Inc. story. So
by Ed Brisson as well, so it's not even it's not the regular.
Yeah, it's not Williamson or even Zarsky, who's about to be on Batman. So yeah, this seems quite skippable to me, but hey ho, that's Batman 2022 annual. The Action Comics 2022 annual, much more interesting.
Which I think is the next part of the story.
I'm checking. I mean, Johnson's one of the writers on it, so yeah, I would suspect that it's going to be relevant.
Yeah, I think it's got 2 stories, which I think half it's going to be the regular story, and then half it is Cy Spurrier by the look of it.
Yeah. So as Action Comics 2022 annual, we have Nice House in the Lake issue 9. We have Justice League Road to Dark Crisis issue 1, so that's a special one-shot leading into the event. So obviously going to be a big talking point next week with me and Matt.
Oh my God, there's so many writers on that.
Shadow War Omega issue 1, the finale to the Shadow War, so that should be a big deal next week as well. Also oversized one-shot. And then there's also the Batman Beyond the White Knight Showcase Edition, which obviously is just a reprint of first 2 issues.
John, I was just looking at the Road to Dark Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
It's not quite what I thought. I thought it was kind of going to be like like the Zero lead-in issues.
Sure.
It's basically like an anthology issue. They're all just it's a bunch of teams doing stories set in a world without a Justice League.
Okay. I mean, it's less interesting, but it's not surprising either.
Yeah, there's at least one interesting writer in there that.
I imagine it's probably going to be the least exciting thing, but I think Action, Nice House, and the Shadow War finale will be exciting enough. So that's what's coming next week on the show. Well, no, we're not talking about all of those because I'm definitely not reading the Batman annual, but I mean, Matt may read it. We'll see.
He might, yeah.
Yeah. No one tell him that I'm not reading it, because that'll be funny.
And then he'll be miserable.
And he'll be annoyed at me. It'll be gold. It'll be great. We'll have a nice time. Excellent news.
Matt won't have a nice time.
Oh, Matt won't have a nice time, but I will. So yeah, I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. They are Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. 4 Days. Thank you to all of them. You can, of course, support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. The main thing for this show is you get the early access. You get it late Saturday night whenever it's ready, as opposed to waiting for the Sunday. So if that's of interest, or you just want to support the show, feel free to go do so over there. And check out other MailFuzz content. We have MailFuzz Movies YouTube channel with the sci-fi and horror movie podcast. Go and have a look there. You can also get MailFuzz TV, where there's reviews of various TV shows. A lot of sci-fi TV shows in particular, but other things. A big thing right now is Better Call Saul, which is myself and Connor reviewing that. But you also get the TV News podcast, which is me and Connor, and then I review other shows with others over there. Tara, for example, we do Babylon 5 and the modern Star Trek shows, things like that. So go and have a look and see if you're interested. But that is us. So thank you very much for joining us. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics. We'll see you next week for episode 308. I think is this 307? I think it's 307. We'll see.
Well, that's what you said.
Is that what I said at the start? That's right. If that's what I said at the start, it's right, because I checked right before we started, but now I'm doubting what I said at the start. So, thank you very much. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speedverse. Speedverse? Speed Force.